The May 13th, 2026 meeting of the Transportation Commission to order. Ariana, if you could please read the instructions.
Welcome to our virtual meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff. Members, if you're able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you're able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you're asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Ariana, Aiden is in the attendees. Could you please move him over to the panelists?
Yes.
So he can do roll.
There he is.
Okay, Aiden, if you could call the roll, please.
Hey, sorry about that. It took a while to switch over. Okay. William Okovich.
Present.
Sean O'Brien.
Present.
Barbara Harrington McKinney. Ann Kovich.
Here.
Robbie Weber.
Here.
Denise Jess.
She said she might be late. She had another meeting that was going to run right up until this meeting. She'll be here, but she said she might be late.
Thank you. Happy Barros.
Here.
Chris McCahill.
Here.
Bill Bremer.
Here.
Harold Cleams.
I think he's coming. He's just having a little trouble getting on.
Thanks, Robbie. Lynn Olson.
She was having trouble getting on too. Let's see if they're over in the attendees. I don't see them. I know Lynn was having trouble finding the invite to get in, but she was planning to come. So we'll have to watch for those folks.
Okay. And then Derek Field is excused.
Okay, thank you. So we have 1, 2, 6, 7 here right now. And I need to keep track of that in order to know how many votes it takes. Lynn, she's asking if I have a quorum. Okay. Everybody take a look at the minutes. Did you have an opportunity to... Sometimes people email me with quick updates while we're at the meeting. Bill, go ahead.
I'll make a motion for approval of the minutes.
Okay, there's a motion. Robbie?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. All right. Since Lynn isn't here, we don't have to talk about alternates voting. If she does come, she would be able to vote because we have one absent. Okay. Do we have anybody registered? We had a number of comments emailed to us under item 1. Did we have anybody registered to speak under item 1?
We do. We have a couple.
Okay.
First, James Kreft, Fitch Hatchery Road, neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I want to talk today about level of service. we hear at Transportation Commission, level of service comes up on a very regular basis. That X, Y, or Z thing will happen, and that will affect level of service. And what I'm not sure about is whether everyone on this commission knows what level of service is. And I just wanted to talk about it. Just take a couple minutes of your time. And I apologize that this is not quite as coherent as I wanted it to be. There's a book called Killed by a Traffic Engineer, where Dr. Wes Marshall goes into the history of all sorts of different assumptions in the traffic engineering profession. In chapter 74 and 5, he talks about the history of the level of service and how it was designed by committee with an expectation that it would be improved over the decades. But the reality is that the core assumptions and limitations of level of service have been maintained over the years. So what was originally a qualitative measure is now quantified. Sometimes there's a little chart that shows up on slides with seconds of delay. One of the things that is really important about level of service is really focused on moving vehicles, really moving cars. One of the things that level of service does not include is safety. The original authors expected that safety would be included in the future, but safety has really completely been dropped from the concept of level of service. During the pandemic, with decreased traffic volumes, level of service improved, but crashes and fatalities went way up. Improved level of service means increased speed means decreased safety. Improving safety for other users, for example, for pedestrian safety by decreasing crossing distances or adding medians, decreases level of service. And level of service, most of the time, is about moving vehicles, not people. Designs, for example, that delay a bus load of people, but speed up a handful of cars, improve the level of service score, though it actually makes the road move fewer people. There's been discussion on level of service. Just on the April 15th Transportation Commission, Tom Moore said, it's not something that's done for design, to design new streets to operate at a failing level. And I always want to ask, failing for whom? And what is failing? Anyways, is a delay of 80 seconds for a car, a few minutes or hours a day, actually a fail in this context? I don't know. And then Yang Tao, just a few minutes later, said we need to prioritize safety for all users over vehicle level of service, and that we serve people, not cars. These statements are in conflict with each other. And so the city needs to come up with a consistent view on what level of service means when we're making decisions. We need to consider the history of this and whether this is really a major thing we want to be focused on. Safety has to be paramount if Vision Zero is a real goal of this city. That means sometimes things will fail, but then we must ask ourselves who they fail for. We need to shift our goals, which is level of service, and shift to moving people. And thank you very much for your time.
And you're muted.
I'm trying to mute in between so that I don't have echoes again. So I'll try and pay real close attention to that. Anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, thanks for coming. Did you say we have someone else, Aiden?
We do. We have one more. Alicia Liu of Yellowstone Drive. neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak.
Hello, everyone. I sent the commission slides for my presentation. Yeah, thank you. So today I want to present a student survey on Regent Street reconstruction. I know this is item 1, but I have a flight in 15 minutes. So I'm actually on my way there. So I'll need to present it for now. So I hope you'll bear with me. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. So basically I sent these 3 options to the entire student body. The first option is the current design that the staff provided. The second design is a bike lane option. And the third option is no reconstruction at all. I got over 1,000 responses by this time. Next slide, please. So I first want to explain why there is actually a bike lane design that fits all technical constraints. So one opposition to the bike lane design is that it limits emergency access. Next. We can actually see that the bike lanes actually can improve emergency access by providing more clear widths. And I believe traffic engineer specifically said that we need 28 feet clear widths for emergency access, and that's how this design can satisfy that requirement. Next slide. Another opposition to bike lanes is that it will require narrower sidewalks. This is also not true. This design actually has 1 feet wider sidewalk each side, which also allows more space for greenery. So you might wonder why you were told that the bike lanes are infeasible. So all those arguments were based on the assumption of double-sided parking. The reason why this option can provide all these benefits is because it only has single-sided on-street parking. Next. And also this design, a difference of this design and the default design is that it uses regular travel lane width 11 feet, which is the upper bound recommended for Community Main Street. Next. We have 1 parking lane which can alternate between blocks, so we can put it close to the small businesses. Next. But this option was never presented by staff. Despite that, it appeared in multiple oral and written comments and was asked about by commissioners. Next. So these are the stats. So basically 75% of the student prefer the bike lane option and only 17% of the students prefer the current option. So I want to pause for a bit and let this number sink in, because are we sure we want to spend millions of dollars to design for the next 20, 30 years for a design that does not have mandate for one of the most important population in this area? Next. So just to make it more intuitive, next. Some representative comments. Space for more pedestrians and more bikes should be a priority. Otherwise, more space for cars will only lead to more cars. And also, people believe that bike lanes can actually ease congestion because it moves more people, and it also slows down traffic and increase safety. And also, eliminate parking can just make the space more clear for drivers and also increase safety. Next slide. Regent Street is right by the edge of the South Campus. Students' clear preferred option deserves proper deliberation. This is not a big ask, but a basic for procedural integrity. The Transportation Commission was able to vote on 3 options for Midvale Boulevard surfacing. So clearly the city knows how to do this. But for Regent Street, somehow the Transportation Commission was only allowed to approve one option. I'm very disappointed that we regular residents have to push to make it happen. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? President Madison, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I didn't catch the speaker's name. I was shifting from my car to in the house. But I did just want to go back. You were giving some numbers on the number of respondents. Do you mind just repeating that part again? So who were the respondents and how many?
Can you bring her? Yeah, she's there.
Okay.
My bad.
Yes, so I sent this survey to all students bulletin board, which basically reaches all students registered for classes this semester. And so on the slides, I said that I had 970 responses, but right now I have over 1,000, 1,004 responses, and I believe the city's official survey also only just have over 1,000 responses.
Gotcha. And then just one last quick question. Were you or the students engaged? Because I'm not on Transportation Commission, so I don't get to be in the, I'm not at the meetings every week. But were the student groups engaged on this project in particular, or were you engaged?
Well, I guess I am engaged just as a normal resident, and I don't believe the student body as a special group is engaged. But the Regent survey is, I believe it reaches the student body, the students that walk by Regent Street every day, for example. So, and I know a couple of my friends who saw that survey and filled out the survey.
Gotcha.
But I don't think there's a focus group or anything like that.
Gotcha. And then one last question, or maybe a clarifying point, or your last comment or two. You mentioned that there was maybe 3 engagement opportunities. And I'm not sure if you all can let her just bring her last slide back up. There was just something I was just trying to understand whether or not there was, I'm just thinking about a directed opportunity to engage with students that you're engaging with and how that was missed.
So I am engaging with students partly because I am a graduate student at UW. So I have access to the bulletin board.
Gotcha.
I can post it to the entire student body. Yeah.
And then I guess one last question, because again, you mentioned how others were engaged, but what is your suggestion for how to better engage the student body?
Well, I guess so District 8, Dr. Alder John is a student herself, or was a student. I believe she's a great contact point, and I could be of help too, I guess.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. I appreciate your presentation. It was definitely helpful for me.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks so much for coming and sharing your thoughts. Did we have anybody else under item 1, Aiden?
We do not, no.
Okay. Does anybody have any disclosures or recusals this evening? I don't know why a person in the attendees has their hand up. That's, not, I don't think appropriate right now. Just gonna let that be. Next, we have 2 items proposed for the consent agenda. Item 2 regarding the grant for Safe Streets and Roads for All, and item 3 regarding a contract with AECOM Technical Services. Does anybody wish to have either item separated from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing no hands, do we have a motion on the consent agenda? Chris?
Yeah, move approval of the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. Robbie?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, assuming no discussion since it's a consent agenda. I'm going to assume unanimous consent vote, unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. Okay, thanks. And I noticed that we have Carl and Denise have joined us. So we now have, I believe, 9 people here. Just double checking. Which means that we need 5 votes to pass any motion. Just so everybody can keep that in mind. So next we go on to item number 4, which is Regent Street. So I know that we have people here to talk about it. Alder Evers?
Yeah, the individual who had his hand raised in the participant section, Eris Blevins, he's the chair of the Greenbush Neighborhood Association. He has registered to speak. That's why his hand was raised. So perhaps he'll be called upon to speak. Since he registered at this time, it's up to you how you want to handle that.
So thanks, Alder. Alicia Liu registered to speak under item 1, which is normally items not on the agenda, but apparently she had a plane to catch. So what I've proposed is what we would normally do is hear from staff with the presentation, and then we would go to people who are registered to speak on this item, and then we will go to discussion and questions.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, so Tom, do you want to go ahead? So again, we'll have, let me just say first that this will be the 4th time that this item has been, that Regent Street has been back in front of the Transportation Commission. And we did make a recommendation to the Common Council and the Board of Public Works on at our April 15th meeting. And on April 22nd, the Board of Public Works recommended that it come back to the Transportation Commission for further discussion of the Regent Street lane configuration between Brook Street and Park Street. And staff wanted us to look at Mill Street between College Court and Bowen Court. So that's why we have it back here again today. And so we'll hear from Tom Moore, and then we'll hear from the people who are registered, and then we'll go to comments and discussion. So Tom?
Yep, thanks, Ann. That was a good summary. That was actually my next slide, was just kind of going over the background of why we're back here. So my presentation is going to be specific to these issues. I'm not going to do the whole presentation. So these 2 areas, so Mill Street and then the block between Brooks and Park, are what we're going to focus on. So first, Mill Street. On the left was the design that was in the original proposal that maintained the existing lane configuration on Mills as traffic headed into Regent Street. Since then, and based off of kind of the discussion that we previously had, we just looked at extending those buffered bike lanes right up to the intersection. Mill Street is on the All Ages and Abilities Bike Network. We were kind of thinking that this would be focused on Regent Street. We would come back and deal with Mills later. But doing this now allows us to tighten up the radii at the corners, which it's a pretty big improvement, especially at that northwest McDonald's corner where space is really limited. So we think this is a good thing to include in the project. We modeled it, went through, this was a concern brought up about delays on Mill Street. And one of the big topics that we haven't brought up yet is that right now there is no vehicle detection on Regent Street or the side streets. So the existing signal infrastructure is really rudimentary. It's it's about as basic as it can possibly be. With upgrades to the signal infrastructure, we're going to be able to handle traffic in a much better way than what we do right now. So removing those lanes is not a concern from us. Queues get a little bit longer, but nothing that is a concern. So we think this is a good change in the design. So again, Mills is on the All Ages and Abilities Bike Network. Reducing the lanes allows for tighter corner radii at those two corners where we don't have right turning vehicles right next to the curb anymore. And then it can be pretty easily managed with the signal timing, this change. So that's Mill Street. It's pretty straightforward. And now I'll get into the Brooks to Park Street, which is a little bit of a bigger conversation. So I just wanted to include some crash data in this presentation. This is the crash data at the Brooks Street intersection. So we've got some different things here showing the diagram, how those crashes took place, the type of crash with there's some left turns, side swipe, right angle crashes. Just some statistics. It's 113th of 1,800 intersections in Madison, 18 crashes over the 5-year period. The colors represent the different severity of crash. The time of day. One interesting thing is that although this intersection is kind of the concern was the morning rush hour, interesting that there were no crashes during the morning rush hour. So during the morning rush hour, the heavy movement is a westbound left turn from Regent Street to southbound Brook Street. But those crashes did not occur during that peak time in the morning with people going to work. So next, the Park Street intersection. So a lot more crashes here as expected with the higher volume. Left turn crashes are the highest type of crash. You can see it's ranked 24th among about 1,800 intersections in Madison. So this is a high crash intersection. You can see by time of day, the afternoon peak hour is the higher time for crashes at this location. So now to get into the options. So we laid this out as different options with the pros and cons. And I'm just going to go through each one here. So option one is the existing option. This is basically what the Board of Public Works approved when we were there last week. Maintaining the existing cross section. We can narrow it down. The curb to curb width here, existing it's 48 feet. If we were to go with this option, we would narrow it to 44 feet. This has the shortest pedestrian crossing, 44 feet versus 54 feet today. So today it's longer because the crossing is closer to the intersection. So it's longer than the street width on the mid block. This option also allows us to stay out of the UW Health property. We would not have to impact their property, or there's a couple existing trees there, kind of mature trees that we wouldn't have to get into. But the cons of this is that it does not allow for protected only left turns. So right now, that eastbound left turning movement is protected permissive. So they get a green arrow at the start of that phase. But then left turns after that have to turn left and deal with westbound traffic. So they're looking for gaps in westbound traffic. So is the conflict today with the eastbound left turn and westbound traffic and the eastbound left turn and pedestrians in that crosswalk on the north leg. So there's an increased crash risk with those conflicts. So we feel this is not the safest design. And this design would result in greater delay and queues. So right now, we would expect, and what we see today, is that the eastbound afternoon queues regularly extend into the Brook Street intersection. So we would expect that to continue. And then as we went through in previous meetings with the BRT timing, what would likely happen is that we would time the Park Regent Street intersection. That Regent Street would operate in terms of queuing and delay about how it does today, but the extra delay and queuing would be moved to Park Street. So likely what this option would result in is longer queues on Park Street, some additional delay to BRT when that's up and running. Option 2, this is the original option that we showed and was approved at TC about a month ago when we were here. So advantages of this option is that it does allow for protected only left turns in the eastbound direction. So that would result in improved safety for pedestrians in the north leg, improve safety overall in the intersection for removing the permissive left turns. It would reduce the queuing and congestion, as I just mentioned. So I'm going to get into the queues a little bit later, but just less queuing through the Brook Street intersection. And then again, it would improve BRT operations along Park Street. The disadvantages are the longer crossing. So the crosswalk at Park Street would be about the same as what it is today, but obviously a little bit longer than the previous option. We would get into the UW Health property. We would have to remove existing trees, but those would be replaced with new trees. In this option, we are removing the east leg crosswalk to have pedestrians use the shorter west leg crosswalk with a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. So there is a disadvantage to pedestrians at that intersection. And then for this intersection, the reason for that westbound left turn onto Brook Street was that heavy movement, specifically in the morning, but then that movement also has to deal with the queuing that extends through the intersection. So that was the reason for that westbound left turn dedicated lane. So option 3, we went back and looked at this, and we wanted to provide you with what we feel are all options here. And looking at this option, we like this option, and we'll go through why. So it's got all the advantages at Park Street for safety, that pedestrians in the north leg no longer would have to deal with left turning vehicles that are looking for gaps in westbound traffic. The queuing would stay out of the Brook Street intersection a lot of the time. We would have both crosswalks at Brook Street. This would allow us to put rectangular rapid flashing beacon push buttons on all 4 corners to activate the RRFB from either crosswalk. And then I think I went through everything there. So cons, we would still need to get into the UW Health property here with those trees. Again, those would be replanted with new trees. And then the crossing distance about the same as today, but longer than the 4-lane option. Now, a separate option we looked at is instead of separating out the left turns, separating out the right turns. So this is similar to the previous option. This option actually has the best, at least in terms of our modeling, the best results for queuing and staying out of the Brook Street intersection because we were able to overlap this right turn. So this right turn can get the green the same time that the northbound left turn gets their green. So those two phases could run simultaneously. So this one is the best operationally for traffic and queuing. But again, this is keeping those permissive left turns and the issues that we talked about with that. But we did want to include this because we did look into it since then. Now, just getting into these queues. So this is separated out by color. So the red is the 4-lane option. The blue is either option 2 or 3 with the dedicated left turn lane. And then the pink is with the right turn lane. So you can see the differences. These are the 95th percentile queues. So this is kind of what you would consider about the worst case when each afternoon. So we're not, with the 4-lane option, we're not quite getting to Mill Street. This is Mill Street right here. And then this is Brook Street. These queues might be more useful. This is the 50th percentile queues. So these are the median queues. So you can see about, with the 4-lane option, it's extending through Brook Street. So that's where we're seeing regularly that this intersection is having issues. And the right turn option kind of shows how they're staying further away from the intersection. The other directions are about the same. Just to compare these for capacity and approach delay. So with the 4-lane option, we would run a longer cycle length. So it'd be a 130-second cycle length, although these would be running free. So this intersection wouldn't be coordinated with any other intersection. It would just be on its own. But it would, by only having the 4 lanes, it would be a longer cycle. And then you can see, so for the approach delay, this is basically showing how the additional delay is going to likely be moved to southbound Park Street. And then the pedestrian delay, you can see that this is kind of the delay for pedestrians arriving at the intersection to cross under their worst case scenario where they're getting to the intersection and then having to wait for the walk light. So because of the longer cycle, there's a little bit more delay for the 4-lane option. The V over C, that's volume over capacity. With the 4-lane option, we're right around that 1, where it's right at capacity. And then the other options are a little bit lower. So that just provides us more flexibility with signal timing and maintaining good operations at the intersection. So our recommendation, I'll just read through this. Although the west leg crosswalk would be longer, staff recommends adding a dedicated left turn lane at Park Street for the eastbound direction. The operational and safety benefits of a protected only left turn phase at this intersection outweigh the drawbacks of the longer crossing distance compared to the 4-lane option. This crosswalk distance would remain the same as it is today, and the overall intersection pedestrian delay would be lower. So the key benefits, it eliminates those conflict points between eastbound left turning vehicles and pedestrians in the north crosswalk, and for westbound traffic. So it improves eastbound through traffic operations and reduces side swipes and rear end crashes potential. And then this would also improve the future north-south BRT reliability and performance. So with this recommendation, we provided this slide for recommended motions. We have them separated out. So move to approve the Mill Street lane configuration. And then for the second option, it would be move to approve the lane configuration between Brooks and Park Street, which includes whichever option. After internally talking this over more, so our recommendation is an eastbound left turn. We were kind of thinking option 2 or option 3 are about the same, but really option 3 provides the benefits that we're looking for and also maintains the pedestrian crossings at Brook Street and still does a good job of keeping that queue out of Brook Street. So option 3 would be our recommendation as kind of a not what was approved at TC last time and not what was approved at Board of Public Works, but something in between. So that is our presentation. Oh, you're muted, Ann.
Thank you so much, Tom. Ariana, I believe it looks like Lynn Olson did finally get into the meeting, but she's in the she's in the attendees queue and she needs to be moved into the panelist queue, please.
Okay, yep, she should be moving.
Okay, thank you. All right, so pretty sure we have a lot of people registered to speak, Aiden. So who do we have first?
So first we have Nicholas Davies of Richard Street, poses and wishes to speak.
Good evening. In the near future, Regent Street will have hundreds more residents who live and or work on Regent Street. For these hundreds of people, most trips will start and or end on Regent Street itself. Whether the street outside your front door has a bike facility or not matters a lot to your ability to get around by bike. A week ago, I was in Paris, where they have been rapidly transforming their street network, creating not just isolated bike through routes, but a bike network that reaches into all of their commercial corridors and arterials. And they're not leaving any streets out based on the short-sighted whims of business interests. The comprehensive network effect is what has sent cycling mode share sky high. As I was biking around Paris in heavy bike traffic, there were often blocks where delivery truck after delivery truck was parked in a bike lane, and cyclists just went around and moved on. Those who pitched double-sided parking on Regent Street promised that it would bring customers to the businesses and give trucks a place to unload, but on-street parking doesn't actually fulfill those promises. A non-customer could easily be occupying that spot in front of the business when the next customer arrives or when the delivery truck arrives, and the parking pullouts shown in the designs aren't sized for delivery trucks anyway. Whereas bike lanes do bring customers right to a business's front door, customers that these businesses aren't getting today. And bike lanes can be a stopping area for vehicles making deliveries. Bike lanes deliver on what street parking claims to provide. Bike lanes also count towards the road width needed for emergency response, whereas parking lanes do not. So including bike lanes would allow us to narrow these overwide travel lanes and reduce speeding. And at crosswalks, a bike lane creates a pedestrian refuge where someone crossing can step onto the pavement, visibly claiming the right-of-way without putting their body in front of heavy machinery. Almost all of the parcels on Regent Street already have off-street parking anyway. Regent Street property owners already assessed how much parking they needed and already built it. It already exists, and it'll continue to exist whether or not additional street parking is provided. 1 or 2 spaces on the street makes very little difference in parking capacity for a property like Sam Brown's that has a 16-car lot. It is absurd that we would compromise cyclist safety, pedestrian safety, emergency response, even ease of deliveries, and a new customer base for local businesses. We would sacrifice all of that just for this marginal amount of surplus vehicle storage on top of a ton of parking that's already there. Going from 2-sided parking to 1-sided parking is all it would take to create space in the design for bike lanes. Madison cyclists are willing to compromise. We just need to be included on this street at all, as Madison's adopted policies say we should be. Complete Green Streets already says bike lanes should be included on this type of street and says this street will be built to the lowest level of stress possible. We shouldn't go any further with designs that don't do that. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, who else do we have in?
Next, we have Benjamin Wolma of Lakewood Gardens Lane, opposes and wishes to speak.
Hello, am I audible?
You are, thanks.
Okay. There is a world where the current Regent Street proposal could be an acceptable plan. In that world, we just accept that cars cause over 36,000 deaths a year in this country. We are still ripping up cities to build highways. We are ignorant of the illness, death, and destruction caused directly by automobile pollution, weight, and speed. We are unaware of the effects of human-caused climate change. We believe surface parking is a good use of space. In this world, there is no effort to reduce vehicles' miles traveled, fuel prices are stable, and the population does not grow increasingly dense and simultaneously less likely to be able to afford an automobile. We have no democratically elected governing body to create laws and resolutions. Thankfully, the city of Madison officially has chosen not to live in that world. We have adopted Vision Zero, adopted Complete Green Streets, and have a sustainable transportation plan that aims to reduce annual vehicle miles traveled per capita by 15% community-wide from 2020 levels before 2050. We're here tonight because the Common Council members on this commission decided to approve a plan that cast aside all of the above city's policies and goals. Maybe they're not aware of these policies and goals. Maybe they want to live in the concrete-covered world I described. Or maybe they truly don't believe that respecting these guidelines is possible and were simply deceived into thinking the plan approved in April is the best traffic engineering is able to provide. That'd be a shame. I know we have engineering staff capable of creating legally compliant and even good traffic plans. Sadly, that skill wasn't put to use on Regent Street. Instead of good, legally compliant options to choose from, staff presented poorly conceived plans that they themselves didn't take seriously, and a preferred alternative that has been referred to as the parking preservation plan and would be a gross exception to city policy. I sincerely hope tonight that they will choose to reject the current proposal for the entire scope of this project and insist that traffic engineering present high-quality legal options that respect the people of this city and its vision for sustainable growth. If that's not possible, I hope they will change their votes when this plan goes before the Common Council and encourage their colleagues to reject this plan. The presentation tonight highlights the complete disrespect traffic engineering is displaying to seemingly everyone except the businesses in this corridor clamoring for publicly subsidized parking. Here's the first paragraph in the Vision Zero Madison Action Plan. Vision Zero Madison aims to eliminate all fatalities and severe injuries that occur as a result of traffic collisions on city streets by 2035. Until this point, transportation systems have focused disproportionately on moving vehicles as efficiently as possible. Consequently, this action plan represents a shift towards the prioritization of safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all roadway users. Why Mills Street now? Why not make Orchard Street look like Mills? Why are we talking about hues? Clearly, priorities are in the wrong place. I think it is reasonable to expect public employees to follow the law and to insist that our traffic engineers get behind the vision that Madison has adopted for its transportation policy. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, thanks so much for coming. Aiden, who do we have next?
Next is Austin Griesbach of West Washington Ave. Neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hello. To start, I'm registered neutral because I do really like the changes that are being proposed on Mills. This sort of treatment should be the default, and I wonder if it might be possible to get some similar improvements to the curb profiles on the other cross streets as well. As for Regent itself, the 14-foot lanes still go against NACTO guidance and Complete Green Streets, and the explanation last time that they're needed next to parked cars also goes against NACTO-described best practices. There are other ways to achieve the 28-foot emergency vehicle clear zone. For example, drivers can pull over into bike lanes. Staff took great pains at previous meetings to point out the word should and assert that it means Complete Green Streets isn't actually telling us to include bike lanes, especially since Regent isn't on the All Ages and Abilities Network. When this was presented previously, staff potentially missed the description on the All Ages and Abilities page for how streets not on the network must be treated. Quote, the baseline goal for all city streets is to provide all ages and abilities bike accommodations. When constraints or other modal priorities limit the ability to provide an all ages and abilities bike facility, streets will be built to the lowest stress level possible, end quote. Stress level here refers to the bike level of traffic stress methodology, where cyclists fending for themselves without bike lanes and the traffic volumes you see on Regent is the highest stress level on the scale. And will is the strongest word used in the whole guide. At the end of the day, the Transportation Commission makes a decision on the street geometry, not staff, and not even Complete Green Streets. The guide makes it very clear that TC can override it. But it says, quote, only in rare circumstances, as that would be a deviation from the modal hierarchy, which applies to all streets, even community main streets, placing biking above motor vehicles. In combination with Monroe, we're not looking at a rare exception, we're looking at further entrenching an abysmal precedent of excluding bikes from these sorts of amenity districts. Feedback you've received that talks about how you don't see bikes around Regent or don't see bikes locked up at bike parking that already exists is clear evidence that the Southwest Commuter Path does not provide sufficient access to these destinations. I simply ask that you make your final decision based on what Complete Green Streets actually says. Not just a should, which apparently means don't actually do that, but, paraphrasing, all city streets will be built to the lowest stress level possible. There are a lot of upsides to a one-side parking option, which another commenter already described, which would be overwhelmingly more preferred by the nearby community than the current proposed design. I strongly urge the Commission to ask staff to develop and present a one-side parking option for consideration, or maybe a parking stagger between sides option or something, I don't know, rather than completely dismissing the idea out of hand. Thank you.
Thanks for coming and making your comments. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, Aiden, who do we have next?
Next is Gabriel Hill of Presidential Lane, opposes and wishes to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi, I've been watching the Transportation Commission for years, and I've called in a lot of times about dedicated bike infrastructure, but I don't think it's necessarily required in this case. What I do think is necessary is to make Regent Street like a destination. It's a place that people want to be, not just pass through. When I think of Regent Street at its best, I think of like the hour to maybe hour and a half after game days at Camp Randall, where the bars and the businesses almost like spill out onto the street, and cars are either almost like blocked off completely, I think, for sometimes, or it's like there's so many pedestrians that cars are going quite slow. I think like a large terrace that businesses like Lucky's can open those big garage doors onto and look out onto like a place that people want to be instead of just like open them and letting cars fume in. Car fumes in would be like way better. I see, and as I've watched the Transportation Commission over the years, I've seen like the rhetoric improve from like back in like 2016 and stuff, where we're trying to move people, not cars. And the high level planning documents are really great now, and they get better every time we revise them. But as others have said in the written comments, we too often like make exceptions to these great documents for reasons that like it seems like we can solve. Like, for example, the big one, like we had great plans for this Regent Street, and then we suddenly had this issue of emergency vehicles and how we need it to be 28 feet curb to curb. But in places in Europe and even in Canada, emergency vehicles just use the terraces and dedicated bike lanes during emergency situations. I mean, bikes and pedestrians can much more easily get out of the way of emergency vehicles than cars can. And it's not like this would be a big intrusion onto them. Like, and it actually might even speed up emergency vehicles because, again, they don't have to go through cars. So we can add back those, you know, narrowed lanes and the curbs in the middle without like having this issue. because again, you don't need 28 feet if you don't need cars to get out of the way of them. Like the 28 feet is for the cars. It's not for the emergency vehicles. So if you go like dedicated bike lane or a terrace, like it would kind of remove that sticking point that has seemed to like ruin this project. Like we have a fantastic opportunity to make Regent Street a place to be and a gathering point for the neighborhood over the next 30 years. With the development and upzoning of the student slums in the Greenbush and Vilas neighborhoods that should be expected in the next 3 decades, this project really feels like a barometer of what direction the city is taking this area. And right now, it just seems like a continuation of the car-only development we've seen for decades. Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming and sharing your thoughts. Who do we have next, Aiden? Oh, does anybody have a question for the registrant? And I stop after each one just in case they have to hop off. So we have that opportunity while they're there. No, anybody have any questions? Okay, who do we have next, Aiden?
Next, we have Matt Fair of Arden Lane, representing UW Health, supports and wishes to speak.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am Matt Fair, representing UW Health. It's good to be back. I wanted to just, first of all, thank you all for supporting the original staff preferred alternative back in April. And so I did register in support, though with the changes that we saw today, and I'll get into that in a little bit, I think I'm supporting options 2, 3, or 4, but anyways, thank you for supporting this last time. And if I'm correct, I think we're discussing tonight just basically the 900 block and then the part on Mill Street and not the rest of the street. And so I might not have said as much as I should have last time about the focus on the 900 block. And that block is right in front of 20 South Park, which is a UW Health clinic. And so I am here on behalf of UW Health, but also on behalf of Unity Point Meritor, which we are partners with. And so we are in support of, again, either 2, 3, or 4. And I will leave it, I will trust that the committee will make a judgment on what the best option of those 3 is. Just not going back to the way it is now and doing nothing with that block. To us at UW Health and at Meritor, we really are concerned about the Brooks intersection, and has been laid out by staff. We're worried about the queuing that takes place now, and we can anticipate more of that as the city becomes bigger, more dense, and the street becomes more used in the future. I would like to remind people that yes, this is a street with many uses. I want it to be a destination street. I think UW Health would love to see that for our staff, but it will always also be a street in which people come for severe and emergent healthcare needs and emergency needs. And so we are quite literally talking about life and death sometimes, but of people who are traveling on the street, either in a car that's driven by somebody, a loved one, or in an emergency vehicle. And so I think we should always keep that in mind. And the intersection at Brooks oftentimes is a mess, and it does slow folks down to get to the hospital, to the emergency room, and to our clinic. And I would also like to just remind everyone that from what I remember, the survey that was done, not by the students, but the one that was done by the city and their partners, I think pedestrian safety was the #1 concern of folks who filled out the survey. And to my knowledge and my understanding, what we just heard from staff, this would improve in pedestrian safety quite a bit at that intersection at Brook Street. And so I think that's certainly an improvement. So again, as far as I was a little left, not sure which option to support or to ask for your support, because I hadn't seen options 3 and 4. If staff thinks 3 is the best, that's great. And if the committee does, that's great too. We were anticipating option 2 with the turn lanes, both Park Street and the westbound turn left only lane at Brooks. But we will, I'll leave it up to you to make a good judgment there. So I think that's all I have. And I thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Alder Ogovich, go ahead.
Thank you, Matt. For Brook Street, is the hospital concerned about left turns from Regent onto Brook, from Brook onto Regent? What's the main concern?
Yeah, both. I mean, I think the queuing that is affected by the left turn onto Park, right? And that backs up into Brooks, that's a concern. But also the left turn from Regent onto Brooks going, what would that be, south? That was a concern as well. We were happy to see that left only turn going south onto Brooks. So I think that's option 2, right? But I think we could probably live with option 3. But again, I haven't had a whole lot of time to like look at it and think about it. Obviously not talk to anybody in my, leaders in our organization and stuff like that. So both those turn lanes were positive for us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I'm thinking about it is, sure, Brooks would be tough, but Mills is a signalized intersection that you could turn left on and then use that to get to the emergency room.
Yeah, I think the main route though is Brook Street for emergency vehicles and a lot of patients and staff. But I take your point.
Anybody else have a question for the registrant? Okay, thanks again for coming and sharing your thoughts. Who do we have next, Aiden?
Next is James Kraft of Fish Hatchery Road, poses and wishes to speak.
All right. So first, I just want to thank traffic engineering for the major improvements to Mills Street, which is something that I'm very aware of, having ridden with my kid up to campus on a regular basis. So this is one of the first, it might actually be fairly safe when this has happened, when this project was more complete. And I encourage TE to look at other north-south streets that currently by default have dedicated turn lanes, and whether they also could be narrowed to make the crossing safer for bikes and for pedestrians. There is still, of course, things like the bus turnouts, which increase the length of the pedestrian crossing at Regent, despite and also decrease the quality of service for buses that then have to find a gap to get back out onto the street while increasing that crossing length. So there are certainly additional things that could happen at this intersection to improve safety and more effectively move people with a minor impact on moving cars. I encourage the TC to focus on approaches that do at least allow for that additional crossing on Brooks Street on the east leg. Having cross it on a community main street, having one side of a street not able to cross on that seems wild. And so I'm glad that there are now some opportunities there. Again, there are a variety of different things happening here, and I just really encourage us to focus on safety for all users more than above moving cars more quickly. I support and would love to bring on more about from our all the comments. I support the comments that talking about additional facilities on Regent Street. Something I just want to bring up is that businesses will often say they need parking to have access to things for customers. And one of the things, I did a quick survey, and there were about 75% of cyclists on the Southwest Path said they would spend more money. They would visit Regent Street businesses more if they had access to safe facilities. And this is borne out by study after study after study showing positive impacts for businesses with bike lanes. So businesses are actually leaving money on the table by supporting parking over bicycle infrastructure. So there's lots more to say. My previous people said it so much stronger than I did. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for those improvements, and let's move people over cars.
Thanks for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, seeing none, thanks again for coming. Who do we have next, Aiden?
Next, we have R.S. Blevins of Aaron Street, representing Greenbush Neighborhood Association, supports and wishes to speak.
Hi there. Yep, it's R.S. Blevins. I'm with the Neighborhood Association for Greenbush. It's a little bit of a puzzling discussion tonight, primarily because I think that we're sort of focused on the one small issue of lane reduction and safety precautions that are being taken for the east end of the project. In that case, I absolutely support what traffic has come up with. I think there's some good options here. It also seems like option 3 is a really nice outcome in terms of pedestrian safety, really making that Brooks crossing something that's a lot more manageable by a number of folks, and also allowing some good support for the BRT that's going to be coming along there. So I think that's a really nice outcome, and I applaud the efforts of traffic for really looking over those options and coming up with some things that are actually options, right? Things that have clear compromises throughout. In terms of the broader discussion, I think that it's a little challenging to sort of see this continued rhetoric around, businesses being short-sighted and being greedy, and I don't totally understand that perspective on this. As a city, we have to kind of compromise and work with all of our folks. And if we're talking about a vibrant Regent Street, I think that's something that relies on having small businesses that work well. That's come up quite a bit. So I'm hopeful that we can land at a good place with this project. I feel like we're on the right track. There's been a lot of input from the community. In terms of the very specific focus that I believe that we're here for this meeting, I support what Tropic has come up with, and I think option 3 seems like a really nice outcome. So I hope that we can move this forward and continue to make progress on this project. Thank you.
Thanks for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, thanks for coming. Do we have anybody else, Aiden?
We do. Next is Cassidy Darling of Aspen Commons, supports and wishes to speak.
Hi. So I have actually worked as an EMT for about a year. And as somebody that goes to Meritor very often, I think it's important that we consider options 2, 3, and 4 that were presented. I think all of those would help. Just because driving an ambulance in Madison is not an easy thing. Madison is a very crammed city, we all know that. And Regent Street is a great example of that. I mean, Meritor is hard to get to just because of its location and also just because the street is so crowded. So I think options 2, 3, and 4 would make it easier and faster for EMS to get to and from Meritor. I mean, again, the point of that there is a light 1 street down. Yes, but at the same time, in an emergency situation, you're not going to go further from where you want to be. And where everyone wants to be is at the hospital, right? There's only so much that you can do for somebody in an ambulance. And the safest place for these people is at the emergency room. So I think the options that were proposed, anything other than the first option would be great. Not only would it make life for EMS easier, just because it's one less thing that you have to worry about, and you can just think about getting your patient there as quickly and safely as possible. But I also think it's safer for everyone, right? Because if we're able to get patients to the emergency room faster, that's making Madison a safer city for everyone. So yes, I would encourage to consider options 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, thanks for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Robbie.
I actually wanted to ask Matt Fair this, but maybe I can ask the person who's, in the ambulance or driving the ambulance. For some reason, I thought that the Park Street entrance was the main emergency entrance for Meritor. Apparently, there is an entrance off of Brooks as well, but it would just seem to me that if you're northbound, you've got your sirens and lights on, and you can make a left across Park. If you're southbound, you're making a right, which seems pretty easy. If you're westbound, again, you've got your siren and lights, and you make a left and then a right into the intersection. And the same thing, basically, if you're eastbound, you make a right on Park and a right into the emergency entrance. It just seems that Brooks is not a particularly efficient backup plan. I mean, it's a backup plan, but it's not the best option if you're running hot with lights and sirens. But maybe you can explain to me why Brooks is such a critical emergency access.
I guess just because it's the most efficient way to get there. I mean, then you have less crossings of traffic. Like if you're coming westbound on Park, then the easiest would be just to turn left on Brooks and then you're there. I mean,
but I'm sorry, you mean on Regent?
Yeah, sorry, on Regent.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to make a left anyway, and Park just seems like a bigger intersection to make that left anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that it's just like the more that you're crossing like traffic when you're not supposed to be, right? Like when you're driving an emergency vehicle, I mean, you are at risk yourself whenever you cross an intersection that is like at a red light and you're not supposed to be going through. So, I mean, trying to avoid that as much as possible and just obey regular traffic laws, but just going through faster. And like, you still have to be very cautious and trying to avoid disobeying traffic laws is something that you're supposed to keep in mind too. So that's kind of what I would say.
So it's really only the westbound access that gives you that advantage at Brook Street, because all the other options you're making rights. And the same thing, if you're coming up Park Street, you don't want to make 2 left turns. So you'd go right into if you're coming north on Park, you would just make 1 turn into the emergency entrance, right?
Yeah.
So it's really only the westbound that you're feeling is a better option.
I would say yes, but I think the whole proposal all impacts each other, right? So the less congestion there, the better, I would say.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Robbie, did you have a question for Matt? He is still here.
I guess same question. I guess I assumed that the Park Street entrance was the main entrance to the emergency, and that gives more visibility to emergency vehicles than trying to make a left on Brook Street, and that's an easier entrance to make. But maybe he can explain to me.
Yeah, Robbie, you're right. I think as far as emergency vehicles, to sort of piggyback on what Cassidy said, I think just the less congestion, the easier, the better flowing street for Regent if the emergency vehicle is coming from the west. And as we know, Regent Street's one of our only east-west connectors, right? But really the Brooks intersection, we're more concerned with for patients who are coming to either our clinic or to the hospital, not in an emergency fashion. It's just, it gets overflowed, it gets backed up, it's hard to get through. For staff as well, but for patients especially. And so that is our concern. And that's going into the conversations we had with the city, going back to the very beginning of this process. This intersection was our number one intersection to try to make it safer for everybody, including pedestrians and drivers. And so that's why we supported the alternative with added lanes in some fashion here. And I should say, it's not for nothing that I don't think that we are, going to negotiate with the city to give up 8 to 10 feet of our land to make this happen. That's how much we think this is important for this intersection and for the flow of traffic on Regent Street.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, who do we have next in?
Next we have Samuel Brown of Vilas Avenue, supports and wishes to speak.
Hello, can you folks hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Wonderful. My name is Sam Brown. I'm the owner of Fabulous Spaghetti House in Delhi and Leopold's Books Bar Cafe on the 1300 block of Regent Street and Greenbush Bar at the 900 block. I'm also the president of Neighborhood House Community Center and the chair of the Regent Street Business Association. I'm also a neighborhood resident. I live on Vilas Avenue right here in the Greenbush. And I'm here to speak in strong support for staff's preferred alternatives for the street design, which was also already passed by this committee. And I'd like to thank you for passing that. I've worked on Regent Street nearly my whole life. I started doing prep work at my father's pizzeria here on Regent Street when I was 14. And when I got the chance to own my own restaurants, I really couldn't imagine opening them anywhere else in the city. I love this street, this neighborhood, and the cast of characters who call it home. The Regent Street Business Association has a wildly diverse membership, restaurants and retailers, healthcare providers, service businesses, and longtime neighborhood institutions. A Regent Street that works is one that meets the needs of current and future users with real safety and convenience for everyone. The city staff's preferred option design does exactly that. It delivers a radically improved and safer experience for pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers along the whole corridor. Most importantly for this conversation, as Matt Fair has laid out, the city's design understands the needs of our hospital partners, healthcare workers, and first responders. This is not an ordinary intersection. It's a major thoroughfare for emergency vehicles that serve one of the busiest ERs in the city, an intersection that will be even more taxed as the city grows and as BRT comes online on Park Street. Deviating from staff's preferred designs risks making Regent Street unusable for the people who depend on it most, patients, EMS workers, and families trying to reach loved ones in an emergency. City staff has done a wonderful job of synthesizing a diverse set of concerns into this design and has worked hand in hand with local stakeholders. I encourage the Transportation Commission to ratify either option 2, 3, or 4 that addresses a lot of the hospital's concerns here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, seeing none. Thanks so much for coming. Do we have anybody else, Aiden?
Our last registrant was Laura Gunblick Hyman of South Mill Street, supports and wishes to speak, but I don't believe she's in the registrants list.
I do not see Laura, Ann.
Okay, and I think we've heard from everybody else who's there, so. Okay, very good. Well, if Laura pops on, let us know. Okay, thanks to everybody for coming and sharing your thoughts. Just a reminder that the Transportation Commission ordinance was recently amended in order to provide this process for resolving differences between the Board of Public Works and the Transportation Commission on projects like this one. or between the Common Council and the Transportation Commission on projects like this. And that's why this was referred back to us with the specific request to relook at the block between Brooks and Park Street. And then staff added the additional request to look at Mill Street. So we've heard from the public, and now is our opportunity for discussion, questions for staff. Questions, things that you would like to bring up right now? Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. So Tom, I emailed you this question before, but looking at option 1, I was wondering specifically about a configuration that keeps the narrowed crosswalk on Park Street, at Region and Park Street, but also has just a dedicated left turn lane with a combined straight and right turn lane on option 1. Did you look at that?
Yep. Let me pull it up here. So yeah, we did model that today, and I'll show you kind of the results. Let's see. Okay, so we kind of just add it to the table here. So this is an option. So this option would be a left only, and then combining the through and right. So it would be the same width for the crosswalk, but we would change up. We wouldn't have the 2 through lanes, eastbound through lanes. It would be a 1 combined through and right. So basically everything just gets more congested. The volume over capacity is over 1. You get a lot of delay and backups. You can see southbound Park Street really takes the biggest hit, and then eastbound Regent Street. So they're both really struggling. And what ends up happening when we modeled it in the sim traffic where it's an actual model is that the Brook Street intersection just really never clears. So any sort of traffic northbound Brooks just continually backs up, and then eastbound Regent Street kind of continually backs up. So this is showing the queue going through the Mills Street intersection. So there's just a lot of eastbound traffic that makes this, going down to only 1 eastbound lane makes it just not work. Here's a picture of that. So here's a picture of the model showing what happens on Brook Street. Just there's just no gaps at all in the eastbound Regent Street traffic, so there's no opportunity for Brook Street to move.
Yeah, I guess what surprises me about that is that it's also only 1 lane the rest of Regent Street. So how can it have such a...
Yeah, it's 1 lane, but it's the signal timing at Park Street where we need to give more time to Park Street that then allows this traffic to queue up and keep the Brook Street intersection open. So, yeah, and this is with the BRT timing, so that does play into it as well.
It's timing with, because you mentioned right now there is no detection on Regent Street. So is this timing with detection?
Yes. This is a stop controlled. Brooks is stop controlled. It's not signalized. So pretty much under this scenario, anyone on Brook Street would be relying on traffic to wave them in, which the model doesn't do. So it's, that's likely what would happen under this scenario. But then what that would mean is just more queuing through the intersections on Regent Street in that case, if people were waving Brook Street traffic through.
Okay. And then the other question I wanted to ask, is there any like an emergency vehicle prioritization on Regent Street right now?
Right now, there is not. No. And that's one of the things that will make things a lot better for emergency vehicles. So what we can do and what we plan to do with this project is provide that detection. So if there is like an ambulance or a fire truck at Randall, we can clear out eastbound traffic. So that vehicle can have all Randall, Mills, and Park Street go to green and flush out eastbound. So that will be a big benefit to emergency vehicles because, right, there is nothing right now for that.
Okay. Last question. Is there any way I guess two questions related to blockage at Brook Street. Do you know if one lane, because right now during peak rush hour, which is basically the afternoon rush hour is when we would hit the 95th percentile queue length. Do you know if in general we get better driver behavior around not blocking intersections if it's one lane versus two lane?
Just anecdotally, it's kind of the same situation as on West Wash at the Southwest Path when there's two drivers. It's difficult for anyone on the side street when there's two lanes because they've got to make sure both lanes are stopping, where in this case, with one lane, it's a lot easier. And then you don't have the issue of the one driver in the vehicle yielding to the side street and then at the same time blocking the view of the driver in the adjacent lane. So, right, that's part of the reason, going to this option 3, and this is very hard to model, is whether the intersection is blocked or whether it's not blocked, and drivers can get out or get in with this left turn, the westbound left turn. We do think that with the one lane that will operate better for those movements.
Okay. I will leave it there.
Thanks, Alder. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. First, I just have a process question. I don't know if this is for Ann or someone else, but if we, with the back and forth between Board of Public Works, if we recommend, say, option 3, what's next? Because that wasn't what was approved by Board of Public Works.
It would go back to, my understanding is it would go back to Public Works because Public Works has to make they're in control. They have to make the final recommendation to the Common Council. So whatever we do tonight would go back to Public Works is my understanding.
Okay, thanks. Mm-hmm. And then a question for Tom. On option 1, from where we sit, it's kind of hard for us to weigh the trade-offs between the downsides of the longer crossing on Park Street, on Regent at Park Street, versus the left turn conflicts that we're talking about, eastbound from Regent to Park Street. And I'm not concerned about the vehicle delay so much, but we're talking longer cycle lengths, more delay for pedestrians, and potentially more of those left turn conflicts with pedestrians. Could you just talk us through that a little bit more, like your take on how tricky, what's the standard for cycle lengths and pedestrian delay and stuff?
Yeah. Yep. Good question.
Thanks.
Let's see. Thought I had it here somewhere. 1 second. Here we go. So we're modeling option 2 and 3 as a 120-second cycle length. That's 2 minutes. That's a long cycle length. I think the highest cycle length that we have is probably the Hairball, John Nolan, Willie Wilson. And that gets above that, but 2 minutes, typically for a long time, any of our coordinated corridors, University Ave, Johnson, East Washington Ave, the cycle length would be 110 second cycles, and we were always very careful to try to cap it at 110 seconds because that gets to be a long delay for the side streets. So these are long cycle lengths, but then you also have to keep in mind that this is running free. So this is the cycle length when everything is maxed out, which will likely happen in the afternoon. So that 10-second difference, that's not nothing. That's substantial. If we could go lower than 120 second cycles, we would, but this is what operates the best, given all the different variables that go into it. What will happen in the real world is we will watch it play around with the max timing and the different options when it's going on, and to make it as balanced as possible. You just can't make it perfectly balanced, so there's always going to be one direction that's a little bit more congested than others. In this case, it is the southbound Park Street direction that takes probably the biggest hit when going to the 4-lane option. What that means is, I don't think I have a good view here, but so the southbound BRT station is going to be at the intersection. What we would probably do is, see if I can, there we go. What we would probably do is make this median cut longer so that left turning vehicles can get, it's likely going to queue back to around here. So we'll let the bus get into the station by getting around that queue. So we would probably cut this median to give buses that space, because north-south BRT is planned to be mixed in traffic as they're coming southbound here. So if this queue is backed up here, the buses are going to sit in that queue. So we would try to mitigate that by doing, a median cut there. In terms of protected only left turns, we've seen really good results on East Washington Avenue in terms of crashes and safety improvements since we've implemented protected only left turns, and a lot of that went in with BRT, with East-West BRT. So we think that is a pretty clear safety benefit in terms of option 1 versus 2 or 3. In this case, it allows a lot more options for us in terms of signal timing during the peak hour. They get the eastbound gets the green arrow, pedestrians aren't moving, westbound's not moving, and then they get the red and they sit and wait until the next green arrow. Whereas today, the green comes up for eastbound and the green arrow comes up. So the first few vehicles can make that protected left turn, but then every vehicle after that is making a permissive left turn where they're looking for gaps in the westbound traffic, which there typically aren't many, and then making that left turn where pedestrians are something that they have to look at the same time as the gaps in westbound traffic. So there was one crash with that. That's this crash where that was the scenario where a left turning vehicle hit a pedestrian walking. I think the pedestrian was walking eastbound on that crosswalk. So you can imagine, as a pedestrian walking eastbound across the intersection, that left turning vehicle is kind of over your right shoulder. So that's what we would be helping at the intersection with that protected only left turn. And the trade-off being about 10 feet of pavement. It's a pretty small trade-off in our view, since this is a a congested intersection, we're going to be providing that northbound. So regardless of pedestrians or not, we're going to be providing that time to get across here. And this northbound left turn is also, will also be protected only. So these pedestrians aren't in the same danger as these pedestrians under the current situation. So the extra length here, which is a little bit of extra time, I think it's a pretty clear trade-off to provide the safety benefit to these pedestrians at the expense of this extra time crossing this crosswalk.
Thanks. One more quick follow-up. Just on have delay, right? So on that northern leg, we're seeing under all scenarios it gets into the red. Do you typically have like rules of thumb for like what happens when you get to a certain level of pedestrian delay? Maybe like when do people start just like crossing anyway or things like that? Are there rules of thumb around that kind of thing?
I don't know of any for pedestrian delay I do know for vehicles, that's kind of when I was talking about the 110-second cycle, and we're giving like 80 seconds to the major street and 30 seconds to the side street, where the person on the side street is waiting that 80 seconds. That's where it starts to feel like, am I ever going to get the green? What's going on? So that's the concern with having these extremely long cycle lengths is that, people will start to just go or think that there's something wrong. I think, 55 seconds is getting close to a minute. I don't know if it's at that level, at that timing, but it's a long time. It's going to feel like a long time standing out there.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, I just dug out my copy of the page from the last Common Council meeting, and it shows a referral to the referral back to TC today, Board of Public Works on May 20th, and then the council on June 9th. So that would be currently the plan. Okay, Pepe, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Tom, as we are seeing that same image there, I had very similar questions. I mean, one of my questions is very similar to what Chris was raising, and as we are looking at these numbers, when we see the pedestrian delay, those numbers, are that the total? Is that the total cycle for a pedestrian? Is that how much they would have to wait on each one of the fractions? And the reason I ask, I just want to kind of clarify that same question Chris was asking of how long we're making pedestrians wait here, because it kind of reminds me of the, the 45-second red rule with cyclists in Wisconsin, and people correct me here if I'm wrong, but I heard this somewhere, and I think I found it online, that if the light fails to detect you and you've been waiting for 45 seconds on a red light, you could cross the street. So I'm thinking here, once a car or a driver has stopped at a stoplight, I mean, it's very unlikely they will cross the red, unless you probably know those numbers if they have to wait like 2 minutes or longer. But for a pedestrian, I have the feeling that maybe pedestrians are more sensitive to this barrier, and if you make them wait long enough, they will start crossing. Would you mind mentioning more about explaining that on the far right lower corner, like that 50-48? Would you mind just explaining a little bit more of that?
Yeah, I don't have any specific information about that. I would just say this is only going to be during the afternoon when it's really busy. As a pedestrian, you're going to see the signal cycle through the different phases. So I wouldn't expect anyone to walk against and put themselves in danger. I think what would more likely happen is that pedestrians would just avoid the situation, get used to it, know that it's going to be a longer wait at that intersection, and probably avoid it if they can.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think here about when that becomes a north-south BRT, and you're injecting potentially way more pedestrian traffic to that intersection. Like, did you take that into consideration, not just for vehicle traffic, but for pedestrian traffic with the new BRT?
Right. We're trying to make it, especially at these station locations, as you know, the best operation we can for pedestrians. So, you know, that's a good point, is that we would expect pedestrian, especially in that north crosswalk, to volume to increase. So,
Tom, Yang has his hand up. Maybe he can shed some light here. Go ahead, Yang. Can you hear me, Yang?
Yes. Thank you, man. Yeah, sorry for that delay. I'm actually traveling at the NACTO conference, so joining from there. Yeah, sorry. Trying to find the button.
No problem.
Yeah. So I have seen you know, research on, like, you know, how much delay will cause a high likelihood for pedestrians, you know, start to disobey the traffic lights. So generally, I believe that's about you know, a minute or so. So if you know, pedestrians feel like you know, they're not going to be served after they wait for 60 seconds or so, there is a high likelihood that they're going to disobey the traffic signal. So just want to share that information. So thank you.
Thanks, Yang. And to your point, Tom, that you were saying these numbers that we're looking at this slide are reflecting, are really reflecting the, you know, the peak hour in the afternoon. Does that mean that those numbers are going to be lower for people waiting during the rest of the day?
Yeah, they'll be lower during other times. So the signal timing will change, especially since this would be operating free. Right now, we have the Regent Street signals coordinated, so they kind of stay on a, you know, 50 seconds this way, 30 seconds the other way, 50 seconds. It kind of stays within that. With operating free, it's on its own. So as there's less traffic, it's going to go through those phases faster. So yeah, this is the worst case scenario during the afternoon. It's not going to be like this all day.
Okay. So my next question is about, I think if I'm getting this right, the idea of the right, you know, the options I have, the right turn only lane or the left turn only lane, they have in mind easing the traffic of Regent, but then also I'm trying to think of the impact after the intersection and what would it mean, since we're bringing more cars than we were bringing before from Regent to Park, both northbound and southbound. And it's kind of a systemic question. Like, did you look at what the impact will be up in Dayton Street or down at Vilas? Because I know both of those get heavy traffic at that same time. So I'm just trying to figure out here, like, are we looking at this systemically? Because if we only focus on this intersection, then we might be forgetting about what happens with the cars that move fast through here, but then they land at other traffic congestion problems in the next other intersections. Can you speak more about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. When we model this, we don't keep going. I think the adjacent signals are far enough away that they can handle the queuing. But that's a good point, and that is something to consider when we're adding a lot of traffic. I think the difference here isn't enough that it would have a very big effect on downstream signals. I think the big advantage is avoiding the queues through the Brook Street intersection and keeping southbound Park Street so it's not backing up beyond the BRT station where buses have to wait in the queues.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, because I mean I understand the concern with, you know, EMS and everything on Brook Street, but if that will turn into backing up on the intersection on the Regent and Park from either direction, I think that would probably kind of, defeat the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to save the rest for later. Thank you.
Thanks, Pepe. Harold, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Tom. We're refining ever more. Couple questions. For the modeling, are the traffic volumes the ones that we have right now?
Yes, we didn't add anything. I would say today's, if you went out there this week, the volumes are probably a little bit lower because of John Nolan Drive. So we're using volumes from 2025.
Okay. Because, we're removing the rush hour lane on most of Regent Street. And that one could, we've been talking about there might be more traffic, but there could also be less traffic. Right.
Yeah. So when we model it, so that's kind of the differences between different modeling techniques. We used both. The simulation takes that into account where, upstream, if upstream is limiting how much traffic is getting there, that can take that into account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always going to be uncertainty, right? The models say it's going to be 59 seconds. Well, it's probably not going to be exactly 59. Okay,
right.
That's
and I should probably emphasize that, we're trying to model this with the BRT. The software that we use is not really set up to model that. So we have to make some assumptions because I think that's a mistake we made early on is that I think we were modeling it incorrectly in that we were assuming a bus every phase where buses are only going to be there. It's like 1 out of 9 or 10 phases or something like that. So, yeah.
Right, and stuff what happens, whatever UW Health is going to build at that corner will probably affect traffic one way or the other. So, lots of uncertainty. Okay. Would you mind, sorry, where's my Zoom? Oh, yeah, you have option 3 already open. Could you just point where the BRT stations in both directions on Park Street are going to be, and if there's also going to be a local bus stop there?
So here's the southbound station is right here. Local bus stops, I am not sure if that would also, I don't know if Mike Chekvala is here.
He was, but he may have dropped off, it looks like, Tom.
Yeah, okay. As far as Regent Street, there is a bus stop right here. On both far sides of Regent Street. But the main concern, is the southbound median center station, just north of the intersection.
And where's the northbound station? No, is this a two-way? No, right?
The existing northbound station, or not the existing, but the planned one, I don't know. I think it's further north. I'm not sure. South, there's going to be one just north of West Wash.
Okay. I guess where I'm going with this, at least partly, is so I'm thinking of the BRT station on University Avenue and I'm blanking, Farley, and how the pedestrian signal timing works there, where the two parts of the crossing have independent signals, which reduces delay, which gives people a good LPI. So, say you're on the north side of Regent Street, you want to get to the bus stop, your light might come on and only gets you into the median station. And then, a couple seconds later, because you have the left turn, the protected left turn from Regent onto Park, that has the left turn, and then that turns off, and then the pedestrian. I guess I'm trying to figure out for the pedestrian delay, since we are redoing the signals here and there's going to be a protected median stop, I guess those pedestrian delay numbers might in actuality actually be somewhat lower. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're talking like for pedestrians in the median.
Yeah, so say the protected left turn from eastbound Regent onto Park Street. So that is like cars can turn left, which means straight traffic on Park can't go. So you could have pedestrians crossing while the protected left is on to the median.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those kinds
right.
of things.
I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work. If it's going to be set up that way, I'm not sure.
Right. But, we have options there, I guess, to potentially improve things. Because, I think at University in Farley, it works pretty well and has made some good improvements both for safety and for delay. And then, maybe depending on where the other station is, similar things could happen there. Okay. Did you at all consider signalizing the Brook Street intersection?
So we talked about that. I think it would be worse than any of these options, just due to the fact how close it is to Park Street and that we wouldn't be able to coordinate it. And the Regent Street volumes are pretty heavy in both directions. So one direction is really going to take a hit. If we're coordinating eastbound, well, I think westbound is going to have problems, and then vice versa. It's just, it's so close that it would not work well. And under this scenario, we are not coordinating. So again, this is operating on its own. So then that would force us to try to do some coordination between the two, and that would make this intersection operate worse. So it's kind of like if we were to signalize this, then it would probably be even more important to have the extra lane at Park Street because of just trying to get those to work together without queuing through each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I expected you would say, but I figured I'd ask at least because, Then, at Board of Public Works, the option one, my understanding of the discussion there was like, there was uncertainty of what exactly is going to happen with the 20 South Park Street parcel. Things might change there. And so I think at Board of Public Works, the idea was like option one, not because it's the best option necessarily, but as a we do this for now, we don't move the curbs, and if adjustments need to be made, they will be made later. Did I misunderstand that at Board of Public Works? And if I didn't, where are we with that now? Is that still another scenario where a kind of wait and see approach?
Yeah, I think that's right. So UW Health does not have any specific plans for this, for redevelopment, other than, I don't know if Matt Fair is still here, but other than concept, kind of a, sometime in the future, they would like to redevelop this. So there's nothing, 5 years ahead or 10 years, 10-year plan. So, right, that would be an option that when this redevelops, we could add this on. But also, part of wanting to do this now is that this is going to be completely torn up with this project. That the storm box that's 20 feet wide is going to come through here and through the Park Street intersection. So, there's going to be pretty major impacts to traffic during construction, and to do that now would be make a lot of sense in terms of how badly that's going to affect traffic. And then again, the benefit, BRT, we assume BRT is going to be here well before any sort of UW Health expansion. So the benefits to BRT.
Matt Fair does appear to still be here. Did you wish to hear from him, Harold?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, can we have Matt, please?
Hi, I'm here. So the question is just on what our plans are, if we have any. Yes?
Yes.
So the answer is we don't have any, specific plans. I think I assume, and our leaders assume, and I think we can all assume with the, access pressures on our healthcare system, and this prime spot, we will be developing in, at some point in the future, but truly, and I'm not trying to evade the question, it could be 3 years, it could be 10 years, and we just don't know. So it could be longer than that for that matter. So I know that sounds like a vague answer, but that's actually the honest truth at this point.
I know how it goes. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay. And then option 2 was the one that TC previously approved.
That's correct. Yes.
And did that not have the crosswalk on the east side of Brook Street?
Right. Yeah. So when we proposed this, the idea was to move the RFB to just this side because of this longer crossing and the conflicts with the left turns, to have pedestrians cross on the west side rather than the east side. But yeah, with option 3, shorter crossing, we think this makes sense to add this in and provide the RFB on both crosswalks.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think not having that crossing will just lead to people making a run for it. And speaking of pedestrian delay, yeah. Okay. Thanks. I think that's all I had for now.
Thanks, Harold. Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. I guess one of the things I'm struggling with is just we have to trust the models a lot. And to Harold's point, there are instances when there might be less traffic. And I mean, you brought this up earlier, Tom, and I feel like it's worth reiterating, but you were asked about pedestrian crossings. And you said, it would be pretty long, and so pedestrians would learn not to cross there. Because the delays are significant, but like the same logic applies to a lot of the traffic flows that we're talking about right now, including like delays at John Nolan are leading to less traffic today. And so, I just don't want us to fall into the trap of thinking that like we're always going to be at maximal traffic, or the only levers that we have the ability to pull are the lane configuration at Park Street. But I also wanted to ask about between options 3 and 4, in addition to the protected left turns, one of the differences is one has an exclusive right turn lane and the other one has a combined straight right turn lane. And one of my concerns is like an exclusive right turn lane might bring about the feeling of, well, I don't know, this could happen with either one of them, is the feeling of being like a slip lane and like you don't stop. And so I'm wondering for those pedestrians crossing on the south side of Regent, crossing Park on the south side of Regent, what is the safer configuration with regards to a combined straight right turn or an exclusive right turn?
For this option with the right turn only, we, I think I mentioned, can overlap their phase with the northbound left phase. I'd have to look back at the model, but I don't think that this would be an option for a protected only phase. I think this is modeled as protected but also permissive. So we think that between the two options of option 4 and option 3, the benefit to the safety benefit is clear in option 3. It's not so clear in option 4, but option 4 reduces the queues the most. But we would recommend option 3 over option 4 because of that safety benefit with protected only left turns.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Thanks, Alder. Bill, go ahead.
Thank you, Ann. Yeah, when I looking at the options preparing for the meeting, my favorite was option 2, but now this evening I think I've switched to option 3. I definitely like the protected left turn from eastbound region to northbound. I think that really gives the pedestrian, because I've made that movement walking across Park Street from Regent, and you have to walk with your head on a swivel to keep looking to see if somebody's going to be trying to turn into your crosswalk. So I really like the protected left turn that option 3 provides. I'm not in favor of the option 4 because of the I think as was just mentioned, as sometimes I think people would treat that like a slip lane, and I don't want that to happen at all. So therefore I really like option 3. Thanks.
And I'd like to add, just thinking about this more. So option 4 with the right turn, even if we were able to, limit that to a protected only right turn on a green arrow, we've just had a lot of problems with compliance for right turns. Whereas left turns, they have the red arrow, they're pretty set, they're not moving. Right turns, we've just seen, we're going to talk about it in a future meeting about right turn on red, but the compliance there, I think we would likely see issues with that.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody. Pepe, go ahead.
Question for you, Chair. There was a person that presented that presentation about the survey they did. Can I still ask a question? Can I ask them a question if they're still around?
She had to go. She was on her way to the airport, and I don't see her in the queue yet, Pepe. That's why she registered under number 1, because she had a timing constraint, and I don't see her still available.
Okay, yeah, that was
otherwise,
right?
Yeah, otherwise we could go back and ask her a question, but she doesn't appear to be in the queue anymore.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering what that data came now and not before, and not beforehand when we were discussing the whole project. And I guess I'm trying to address the elephant in the room in a way with all the people that registered against this and spoke kind of overall on the whole project and not specifically about this section. How does it work now, Chair? Are we only with the Public Works sending this back to us? Are we in a spot where we can review the whole project still, and here's just from ignorance, or are we only allowed to discuss this intersection or this block and that's it?
So that's an excellent question that we discussed at our agenda meeting. The way that the ordinance is designed to work is that the Board of Public Works has a difference of opinion. They send that back to TC. The TC looks at what Board of Public Works is recommending and opines on that, and then answers back to the Board of Public Works, which is why the presentation was really focused on both of those things. Technically, the way this happened, it didn't happen quite the way that it was supposed to. Board of Public Works was supposed to refer it back directly to TC. They referred it to the Common Council, and the Common Council just re-referred the item back to us. So my understanding of how it's supposed to work is that we're really supposed to just look at what the Board of Public Works asked us to look at, but it's a little muddy, I'll be honest with you, because of procedurally it was done a little bit differently than how it should have been done. So, but that's why I put the notes, that's why we put the notes on the agenda, so that people could understand process and the intention from the Board of Public Works.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, because, you know, I mean, there's a reason why we have processes like that, right? Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. I did specifically ask about registrants, and the assistant city attorney that works with us said that we couldn't filter what the registrants wanted to say, but we're trying to follow the process here at TC. But, you know, people are certainly welcome to make their comments, but we're really trying to focus on the process the way it was referred back to us by Board of Public Works.
Yeah, and in no way, yes, that makes sense. Yeah, and in no way I'm trying to, you know, break that process. On the opposite, I wanted to get clarity on like what the process looks like, because, you know, before asking this question, I was just thinking, I mean, I understand we are further down the process, and this would probably sound backwards, but I mean, I think there's a reason why we have a second chance here and why this project came back to TC in a way. I mean, that, in my opinion, that just means that democratic systems that are in place are actually working. And I mean, yeah, I mean, for what it's worth mentioning, I mean, I continue to believe that we should follow Complete and Green Streets policy and Vision Zero program recommendations in terms of the design for this whole street. But yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to obstruct this process at all. I feel like it's just the democracy is working here in a way. So I just wanted to bring that up before we close this discussion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and technically speaking, I don't think TC is limited in what motion it chooses to make, because part of the process and how we all agreed to support it was that TC has the ability to offer its opinion, whatever it is. And whether Board of Public Works or the Common Council ends up agreeing with us, the Transportation Commission can go on record with what it recommends.
Right. Yeah, no, and I mean, based on what we're talking today, like nobody has mentioned anything about Mills, and I think it's because it just makes total sense, right? Like the proposal for Mill Street is just like it matches all of our policy, and it just makes sense in terms of safety and design. And I just have the feeling that the reason why we're going like back and forth with Regent in particular is because it's just this very specific situation where there's a part of us, or at least myself, I can speak for myself, that I just feel like we're just simply not respecting what the city had agreed to as an overall, just kind of to make an exception to the rule. And I'm just concerned about what that will create in the future in terms of finding more exceptions in the future to other streets that might not want to follow Complete and Green Streets and Vision Zero recommendations.
And Pepe, that's why structurally we're asking for two motions, because Mills seems to be one where I'm expecting not a lot of. I'm anticipating we may have unanimous consent on that particular motion. And the last time this project was here, as you recall, on April 15th, option 2 and the rest of it was recommended, but by a vote of 6-5. So it was not unanimous consent. So, you know, we have that. That's why we're looking to have two actions tonight, which we checked, and the council office tells us we can do that. So we're trying to split it because they seem to be two different decisions, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. And as I was saying, that I feel like democracy is in action the moment we have a chance to speak about it, because we get more and more data, right? Every time we speak, and we're in a better place to make good decisions. So would that make sense, Chair, if I move the motion to approve the recommendation for Mill Street? Just to get that one out of the way.
That would be, and the suggested motion is to move to approve the Mill Street lane configuration of a single lane in each direction and bike lanes continuing to the Regent Street intersection.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the motion you would like to make?
Yep, I would like to move to approve the Mill Street lane configuration of a single lane in each direction and bike lanes continuing to the Regent Street intersection.
Okay, do we have a second? Alder O'Brien?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Do we have any discussion on the Mill Street? Carl?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Tom, since this is an option that came up pretty late in the process, I mean, how much do you think room there is still for refining it? I was thinking, did you look at an option that has like a protected intersection where you don't have, right turning traffic probably moving into the buffered bike lane? And I guess, I'm fully in favor of this. I'm just wondering, since it's been added late, if the details could still be refined. And I guess that would be something that would happen between now and approving plans and specs sometimes later. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, if this is the general concept, it will come back with final design. So, little tweaks like that could be added in. But yeah, the big concept here is removing those lanes on Mills to provide the bike lanes.
Thank you.
Okay, I am going to assume a unanimous consent vote on this motion, unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Please raise your hand. Okay, that motion is carried unanimously. Then we have the other issue with regard to the block between Brooks and Park Street that we've been talking about. Alder Okovich.
Yeah, I will move to approve the lane configuration between Brooks and Park Street, which includes option 1.
We have a second for that motion. Alder Evers, you can't second, sorry. Since you're not on TC. Robbie, you want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second discussion. Alder Evers, did you wish, or would you like to speak to your motion, Alder Okovich, and then we'll go to Alder Evers?
Yeah, I would just quickly say I chose option 1 because it's the first one and we need one to have a discussion. It's not necessarily the one I think is the best, but I do like option 1 or option 3, I think, are the two that I think are the best, but was picking option 1 so that we have a discussion.
Okay. Alder Evers, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commission members. I'm not in favor of option 1. I think option 1 essentially represents the status quo. And the status quo, from what staff has shared, is unacceptable in my mind because the current status quo is a dangerous intersection. And there's been some talk about pedestrians and others and motor vehicles drivers avoiding this intersection for whatever reason, so that we don't really know how heavily it would be used. This intersection is avoided. I avoid this intersection. But what happens when people avoid this intersection? They still are trying to get east to west. And many are cutting through at either Vilas or Drake and going through the Greenbush neighborhood, and sometimes at a high rate of speed. We've had to do traffic calming. And with the increased popularity of the Henry Vilas Zoo, it's an ongoing challenge. But I would encourage you to move away from option 1 and consider option 3. which I think improves safety for all users. But option 1 to me is too reminiscent of what we currently have, which to me is just not acceptable. It's not a safe intersection. It's one to be avoided, and I know that many people do. So I encourage you to vote down option 1 and then reopen your discussion with a new motion to consider option 3. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Figueroa Cole, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to try to chime in earlier, so I'm sorry for my delay, but I just wanted to echo Pepe's sentiment about having a discussion in general. I get it. We will want to follow process, but as an alder that is struggling with this project and the discrepancies that we're seeing between the policy that the council approved and what we're trying to accomplish here, I would appreciate as much discussion and feedback possible, so when the item comes back to council, we can make a decision between the available options. So I really appreciate if that conversation, I wouldn't mind if the conversation gets deep, let's put it that way. So that's my 2 cents at this moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Other comments? Since nobody else has, did you have anything else, Alder Figueroa Cole? No? Your hand is still up. I just wanted to make sure. Pepe, go ahead. I'll wait till everybody else has had a chance to say what I think. Go ahead, Pepe.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, in a way, I was kind of like, I was just going to say some things as some other people raise their hands, because I believe there's going to be more discussion here. I personally don't. I'm not in favor of option 1. If I had to take a stance here, I would probably go for option 3. But right now, I'm feeling neutral in terms of voting, because I just feel the struggle with this complete project, you know, and I take this as a sign of like we're giving a second chance here to rethink what we decided on April 15th, and I would really appreciate more discussion on the overall project, so we make sure that we're thinking a Madison that is, you know, the Madison of the future, not just the Madison of the present. In the past, we've talked a lot about the things that we appreciate of our brothers and sisters in Europe have done in terms of safety and cycling and walking. And we have successful examples in the city, such as State Street. Yes, it's way closer to downtown, but still, it's a city. It's a street with no through traffic for most part of it, and it's got amazing businesses flourishing every year and going great. So, just to make a point that you don't necessarily need parking on both sides to have a successful business. Generations are changing quickly, and they're asking for different things, and we heard that from the survey that was presented at the beginning of this meeting. So just to reiterate some of those points. Thank you.
Thanks, Pepe. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. I appreciate everyone who's pushed on this project, the public, the discussion of this commission, staff for tweaking things. I think we've discussed a lot. There's plenty more we could discuss, given, you know, endless time to work through the details of this. I think we've reached a much better place than we started, and I'm going to vote for option 3.
Thanks, Chris. Alder O'Brien.
Yeah, again, I want to echo everybody's sentiments of just like thanking everybody who's, you know, emailed and reached out in a shockingly large number of District 16 folks, which is actually quite far away from this street. And I think that just kind of shows at how many folks across the city use this street. And I know I've used it many times when I lived on the east side, and I would commute to Edgewood University every single day. And I still use it almost every single day. And I think looking back at my vote, I wouldn't change my vote, but I do appreciate having the ability to you know, make some additional tweaks and make some additional safety improvements. I think this is an act of a balance, but for me has kind of struck the idea that we need to start looking at, like, when are we talking about exceptions to complete green streets, and how does that blend in with our emergency vehicles? And I think that would be a conversation that I would like to have at TC is, how are we blending the needs of emergency vehicles on some of these streets? Because I do wish that we could make and bring in some more of those, but I don't know that that's possible to balance all of those needs. I'll be supporting option 3. I just can't support option 1 and leave things how they are. I think option 3 is good. I don't think it's the greatest, but I think it does strike, again, that balance that this project seems to be walking the line of. So those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Okovich.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to amend my motion to read move to approve the line configuration between Brook Street and Park Street, which includes option 3.
Okay, Robbie, you were the original person making the second. Do you support that?
Fine with me.
Okay, all right. So the motion has been amended to approve so a friendly amendment, I assume? Everybody's okay with that? All right. Move to approve the lane configuration between Brook Street and Park Street, which includes option 3. Harold, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple thoughts. I think I'm going to vote in favor of the motion, but I think I also want to emphasize, last time I voted against approving the geometry because I had many concerns about how we're deviating from complete green streets. I think the bike accommodations is one piece. The prioritizing of parking on both sides over additional pedestrian space, which was clearly identified as the main priority, is another thing. But that I respect the vote of TC that we had then. And so I think with the options presented to us today for this particular block, I think option 3 is the best one. I think the protected left turns are a huge safety benefit and really important for the BRT station. But yeah, if the Common Council came back and said we have complete green streets and TC needs to go back to the drawing board, I would not be disappointed. Thank you.
And that's still a possibility. Alder Figueroa Cole, go ahead. Alder,
I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm on the phone and I
sure
figure out where the button goes. Again, seconding Harold's position on this. I think I heard one of the elders speak about discussions in the future about emergency services or whatever. I really would like for the commission to consider to have discussions on how on a policy that will help us deviate from the complete green streets policy in a way that is more predictable, not this one-off, because honestly, this doesn't help anybody. So you guys know me, I'm extremely supportive of this policy, and I get this is a very difficult project, but it just holds us accountable also to the public to have a clear expectations when these type of decisions are made. So hopefully in the future the board can have a topic of discussion on how to use this particular project as an example to build a site policy that allows for exceptions on that, what that would look like.
Thanks, Alder. Complete Green Streets is going to be coming to TC at some point here in future months, and staff is keeping track of things like emergency access. We've talked about that a lot, and we need, my opinion, we need to see something in Complete Green Streets that addresses that. So that's something that we can look forward to in the future. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to say I also support option 3, but I'd also like to make the observation that when this came to TC on April 15th, we supported option 2 because Board of Public Works saw something and asked questions and sent it back to TC. Staff came up with what I personally think is an even better option, which is option 3. So what I would say is, wow, the process is working the way that it was designed to work with, in my opinion, the added benefit of having this conversation create what's an option that I think I heard Tom say he likes even better than the option they had last time. So in my mind, the process is working really well. And, you know, we'll see what happens when it goes to Board of Public Works and then back to the Common Council. But I think the process is allowing us to have this additional discussion. So just my thoughts. Other discussion on the motion. The motion before us is to move to approve the lane configuration between Brook Street and Park Street, which includes option 3. Is there further discussion? Denise?
There we go. Thanks. Thanks, Anne. Yeah, I am also supportive of option 3 and appreciate the iterative process. Having crossed that spot many times as a pedestrian, it is very unnerving to have unpredictable vehicles turning into those lanes. So I think this is an improvement. I am still troubled, you know, with the moving away from complete green streets with the project overall, having voted against it last time. So just needing to make sure that I give that voice. And I too really want to see us dig into creating what I hope is a very short list of exceptions, but something that we can really refer to in situations that are really tough like this one. And I think the emergency vehicles thing is one of the few exceptions. So I will be voting, I think, in favor of option 3, but just still have sadness about, you know, going against the Safe Green Streets protocols overall. So thanks.
Thanks, Denise.
Hey, Anne, this is Yan. So sorry, I couldn't find my raise my hands button.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, my computer is out of battery, so I'm joining from my phone. Yeah, if it's okay, I want to you know, add that you know, as staff, we kind of, you know, struggle a lot about this one as well. You know, especially you know, we really appreciate you know, the thoughtfulness you know, from all the public members. You know, whether those are you know, people who use this corridor, you know, on foot, by bike, you know, businesses. You know, those are definitely all you know, valid inputs, and we really, you know, appreciate you know, hearing those. You know, one thing we struggle with is that you know, how to you know, balance, accommodate you know, all the you know, all the needs, all the valid needs out there. You know, my thought is that you know, I think it really depends on how you view this. You know, you can argue that you know, this is a variation from complete green streets. You know, I totally see that, right? However, though, you can also argue, you know, this also is in spirit of complete green streets, because you know, my belief is that when we talk about complete green streets, we're not talking about a particular street. We are talking about you know, a network. So I think it's very important for us to provide a complete network for every mode, but it's going to be very hard to provide, you know, a quote unquote complete streets for every street. If we do that, we end up with a street that you know, doesn't work very well for anyone. So I think for this project, we really decided to you know, heavily prioritize pedestrians, trying to free up as much space as possible, for the width of the sidewalk, and also for the pedestrian crossings. Even as discussed quite a bit today, right? We don't want to make the street wider. We don't want to add lanes. However, for this situation at Park Street, by adding a lane over there, that actually can allow us to serve the pedestrians better and serve us, allow us to serve transit better. So sometimes it's, counterintuitive. But we need to look at things as a whole. So just want to share my thoughts regarding complete green streets. We'll definitely look into, how we reconcile this, future updates, regarding how we define complete green streets, how we address emergency vehicle accommodations, and we'll bring it back. We'll get more guidance from TC on this. Thank you all, the commission members, the council members, and also to all the public members, for working with us on it, for spending a lot of time with us. So we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks, Yang. Pepe, let's hear what Tom has to say, and then we'll come to you if that's okay. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, because it's been brought up now, about complete green streets and variations and not following it. At Board of Public Works, I gave a presentation kind of directly on that topic of, does this project follow complete green streets? I didn't want to redo that tonight just for time, but I would just, anyone that's has that concern, I would ask that you watch that presentation, or I can meet with you and we can go through it. But I pretty much laid it out step by step. I went right through the Complete Green Streets guide with screenshots from the pages, laying out why we think that this does follow Complete Green Streets. There are recommendations in Complete Green Streets, but it's not a hard line on any of the things that we're doing here. So I just wanted to point that out because it's been a topic. I wasn't going to bring it up, but since it's been brought up, I just wanted to point that out, that you can go back and watch that Board of Public Works presentation. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Pepe, go ahead.
Thank you, Tom. And honestly, I just want to express gratitude to the staff, because I think every time this not just this project, but all projects have come back to you, you guys come back with more refined and better and safer ideas and layouts. So just want to appreciate that for a second. And yeah, I mean, I love what Mill Street looks like. I agree with Harald that if there's room for tweaks and all that, that's great. I'm wondering if that also applies to other streets that are going to be crossing Regent. And Tom, maybe you can help me understand that. I mean, I appreciate you were very thoughtful in saying that, sure, north-south BRT will come in and that will add a factor of more people walking into the Park Street, Regent Street intersection. And I appreciate you considering that. And is there going to be room for tweaks for making sure that not just Mills, but every single block or most blocks in Regent are easy and safe to cross for pedestrians and cyclists, so they can get to the other less streets with less traffic? And if that's a yes, then I mean I'm walking out of this meeting in peace and knowing that we're landing at our best effort here and moving forward.
Yeah, so we kind of have the difference between the signalized intersections and the unsignalized intersections. So the signalized intersections of Randall and Mills, we've got the bike lanes now going right through the intersection, to the intersection and through the intersection. So then the unsignalized intersections will have the RRFBs at Orchard and Brooks, which Orchard seems to be, next to Mills, the most heavily used north-south route. Brooks and Charter less so. So there are improvements at every intersection, but I would just say this one is obvious at Mills because it's signalized, and we can provide that for bikes versus the unsignalized.
Pepe, can I just ask Tom to follow up, because this is the general cross-section geometry. So if you're concerned, Pepe, about details and opportunities for some of the things Harold was talking about earlier with some fine tuning of things, that we will have that opportunity, correct, Tom?
Yeah, right. Yep, we're just starting the final design now, so this will come back again for final design.
Awesome. And just one last question, Tom. Yeah, that helps. Yeah. Are we considering the same way we're painting, we're doing that intermittent green across Regent on Mills? Are we considering doing that on Randall as well?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. A lot of great discussion. We've had 4 great discussions on this project, and so I think the process is working the way that people were hoping that it would work, at least in my opinion. Is there further discussion? I'm just going to ask this question. Does anybody want to have a roll call vote on this motion? Because if you do, we will. Raise your hand if you want a roll call vote. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote in favor of the motion. Move to approve the lane configuration between Brook Street and Park Street, which includes option 3, unless anybody wishes to vote no, wishes a roll call vote, or wishes to abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Pepe?
I will abstain.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else wish to vote no, wish a roll call vote, or wish to abstain? I'm going to ask one last time. Anybody wish to vote no, wish to abstain, or wish a roll call vote? Okay, the motion is passed unanimously with Pepe abstaining. Okay, great. As I said, really productive discussion, I think. And I think that I want to think about this, and I want to talk to staff about this, but when it comes to Complete Green Streets, we may want to have a discussion at Transportation Commission before they attempt to make the changes to Complete Green Streets. So we have an opportunity to bring forward concerns that we could ask them to address. How would you all feel about that? A little bit different way for us to proceed, but this is something we have talked about a lot, and people have a lot of ideas and things that they wish to have clarified. So I'm just thinking it might be more productive to have a discussion about it, but we can think about that and talk to staff about how they might want to come forward with that. Just want to make sure that we capture everybody's input and feedback, because we've had a lot of it over the past however long we've been looking at Complete Green Streets. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tom, and thanks to staff, and thanks to everybody, the public. We've had a lot of people who've come to all of our meetings to give their thoughts, to the other alders who've participated in the meetings as well. And thanks to the committee members who've been so well prepared and had such great questions. So thanks to everybody for that. And I'm saving all my notes. So, all right, we will move on to item 5. Tom, the Odana Road and South Whitney Way Highway Safety Improvement Project update.
Yep, I will share my screen again. So this is not here for approval. This is informational.
Excuse me, Tom. Let me just say that I believe we have somebody registered to speak. Is that correct, Aiden?
Correct. Yep, we have a couple.
Okay, so we'll hear from Tom with the presentation, we'll hear from the public, and then we'll have discussion. Thanks.
Yep, so this is the Whitney Way, Odana Road Highway Safety Improvement Program project. So this is a little bit of a different process, and I'll go through it. So what is a Highway Safety Improvement Program? So it's a federal funded program where the FHWA distributes funds to all 50 states. Those states then administer this program where different entities can apply to the state with project ideas, and then the state chooses, evaluates those projects, and chooses whether to fund them or not. These are kind of based off of crash data and based off of proven safety countermeasures. So things like adding left turn lanes, signal upgrades, lighting, pedestrian crossing improvements, things that are known to reduce crashes. So we had a similar project. I think actually these were applied for and received funding during the same year. This was at Gammon and Watts. This was constructed, let's see, I guess it would be 2 years ago. So this project was very similar with similar improvements of upgrading all the signal infrastructure, adding signal heads over each lane, where in the past there was only one over a lane. Basically improving the visibility of the signals, redoing the crosswalks, pedestrian ramps, and then in this case, it was offsetting the left turns on Gammon Road. So with the Odana Whitney project, this was applied for and awarded in 2022. And this is right from the application of what we proposed for improvements. So similar to Gammon Watts, we improve the visibility of signal heads at the intersection, convert the traffic signals to monotubes with signal heads over each lane. Use of retroreflective backplates on the signal heads would further improve visibility. Improve signal timing to meet MUTCD standards and to implement emergency vehicle preemption is also recommended. Improving pedestrian facilities to include high visibility crosswalks, the addition of audible pedestrian push buttons, increased pedestrian storage on the north and east legs, and curb ramps that meet current ADA standards would also be beneficial to pedestrians crossing the intersection. Enlarging the east leg median is also proposed, which could provide additional refuge space for pedestrians. Additional street lighting is also proposed. To improve driver expectancy through the intersection and reduce confusion for northbound drivers on the north leg, it is recommended to define 2 receiving lanes instead of 3 by expanding the north leg's median. So this is a graphic that was included with the application, kind of spelling out what we plan to do. And then we included the crash data from the time for the intersection. So WISDOT evaluated this and decided to approve it for funding. This was the funding that we were given, $120,000 for design, just over $1 million for construction and oversight. And the way these projects work is we have an agreement with WISDOT on working jointly on the project. WISDOT bids the project, selects the contractor, and WISDOT manages the project under construction. So we're in that phase of doing the final design. This is what it looks like. This is expanding that north median to remove one of the northbound lanes. We're also shifting lanes around to provide a northbound bike lane between Odana Road and Tokay Boulevard. Otherwise, it's doing all those signal infrastructure improvements along with the pedestrian ramp improvements. Again, signal heads, this is just showing the signal head placement, signal heads over each lane to improve that visibility. Since we received this funding, there was a bad crash southbound Whitney Way where a driver ran the red light and struck a pedestrian that resulted in a severe injury. It's not a full intersection reconstruction. These are the limits of construction. It's just reconstructing each corner and median nose. So here's a list of the improvements. So this is a full signal replacement. This will be accessible pedestrian signals, signal heads over each lane, high visibility yellow backplates on the signal heads, cabinet and controller replacement, video detection rather than the loops in the ground, and emergency vehicle preemption. So we're widening each median, extending the median noses through the crosswalks, except for the south leg median is not getting wider; it's staying the same width there. Again, removing that redundant northbound lane, adding in the bike lane, high visibility crosswalks, and removing this driveway to the gas station. So this gas station has 4 driveways. We are removing the driveway closest to the intersection, which is not needed, and by far the least used. Almost no one uses that driveway. So project schedule. This actually came through the process in 2022. Back when this was proposed, it went to Transportation Commission, Board of Public Works, and Common Council for approval. There wasn't a plan included in that. It was just approving the working with the state on developing the project and accepting the award. So design is taking place last year and this year. It'll go out to bid for contractors in the fall, and then construction will be in 2027. During construction, we'll have restrictions on work hours and lane closures to keep lanes open, because the concern here is that it's so close to the belt line that traffic would back up onto the belt line and cause issues there. And then, this is a heavily involved with the state on this project. So definitely taking that into consideration. We'll keep an eye on things during construction as well with cameras and signal timing. But, the big thing with this project is that there's a limited scope. It's limited to what we applied for back in 2022. We don't really have the option of expanding the scope and including things that were not included in the application. So kind of not a full rebuild of the intersection, but safety improvements that that can be added kind of at the surface level without having to dig up everything in the intersection and dig up the utilities. So just wanted to provide that update, and that was all I had for a presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Let's hear from the public then, Aiden.
First, we have Nicholas Davies of Richard Street, opposes and wishes to speak.
Good evening. I should say up front that I prepared these remarks as if I was speaking to a commission that takes complete green streets and Vision Zero seriously in a city where complete green streets is part of city ordinance, and that'll become relevant as I go along. As in just a brief aside, if previously approved plans are non-compliant with CGS, the commission can and legally should move to reconsider them. With that said, looking at Gammon and Watts, that's really not an example worth replicating. That project did very little to make the intersection any safer for people outside of a vehicle. And after having recently redone that intersection, it's now hard to foresee when and how that intersection is ever going to be made less hostile. At Odana and Whitney Way is on the all ages and abilities night bike network. And I don't know if this project will be the one to add that segment of the AAA facility that's supposed to run through that intersection. But at the very least, we need to make sure that the changes that we're making today aren't going to make adding that AAA facility later more difficult or more expensive. The project proposes eliminating a redundant northbound receiving lane on Whitney, and I appreciate that we're doing that. But with this road being on the AAA network, we should be taking that freed up space and blocking it off from traffic in a way that prepares for it to become part of that AAA facility. And unless we're going to put that bike facility in the median, then I don't think the median should be the one absorbing that right-of-way space. Complete Green Streets also classifies Odana Road as a community connector, which is supposed to have bike lanes, according to Complete Green Streets. To the east and to the west of this intersection, Odana already has those required bike lanes, but the segment of Odana running through the intersection today it's not yet up to that standard. This project could be the one to add those bike lanes, but at the very least, if this project rebuilds these signals in a way that assumes there will continue to be 2 travel lanes in each direction, when in the long term, that is not going to be the case based on Complete Green Streets, then that's not money well spent. That's not future-proof. There are also really glaring safety issues here with the slip lane on the southeast corner of the intersection, which complicates crossings and facilitates high-speed turns and poor signal compliance. There's also the turn lane in the southwest corner of the intersection that contradicts the no turn on red and also leads to poor compliance. So we should also be assessing whether this project is going to get us close to Vision Zero, or whether we're going to be locking in the status quo for years to come and not making progress towards Vision Zero, and whether it's actually going to hinder our progress towards that goal. Thank you.
Thanks for coming and sharing your comments. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, thanks for coming. Do we have anybody else, Aiden?
Yep, we have one more person, Gabriel Hill of Presidential Lane, neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can, go ahead.
Okay. This intersection really matters to me. I mean, I use it every day to drive home. And as a kid, I had to cross it whenever I went to like the YMCA, and the pool was over there too in that south west corner, the southwest side of it. And I was reading some public comments that were written, and Jonathan made some great written comments about the slip lane, and I agree with him. That feature is just the worst aspect of this intersection. Cars are still going highway speed when they come off the interstate, and you regularly see them going 45 or sometimes pushing 50 miles per hour through that slip lane. And when they take that turn, like, you can go out and watch it. Like, even when it's red, nobody stops. And when it's green, they just fly through there. And the bushes on the right side block it, so you can't even really see pedestrians when you go through there. And even when I drive, and I'm like, again, I'm somebody that bikes, is very traffic cognizant, I go through there sometimes faster than I should. And like, you can't see pedestrians when you go through there. So that slip lane is just dangerous. I don't think I need to repeat slip lane death statistics to you guys. I mean, you guys assuredly know how dangerous they are. And I mean, I think that a lot of the written comments go over the slip lane and the problem with it. And I realize we can't remove it maybe during this project, but maybe build it in a way where we can just like put a road closed sign on it. And, you know, like, I realize the scope is smaller on this project, but like, we need to build in a way where that is going to be removed eventually. Well, slip lane is my main issue. I have a few other problems with the proposal. The left turn off the westbound Odana onto southbound Whitney Way almost always sees cars fading into each other because it's 2 lanes into 3. And then also you're turning into like the lane position 2 and 3 instead of lane position 1 and 2 as is standard. So sometimes you have like cars just like basically bumping into each other, and it's just, that's kind of terrible. So really, I mean, again, this might not be part of this scope, but it should be planned for in the future, is that southbound Whitney Way is going to be put down to 2 lanes. And then obviously later on, it'll expand it to 4, but in the intersection, it'll be 2 lanes. The only problem with that, you'd say immediately, is southbound Whitney Way on the north side of the intersection is 3 lanes wide. Well, it's only 3 lanes wide for this block. And once that Whitney Way, this block gets updated to the new design, it should be 2 lanes with a bike lane. As we heard from a previous commenter, this area is going to get bike lanes, and hopefully it's going to get those protected bike lanes, just like Seago will when it gets redone in like 10 years is when it's going to get redone to how it is up north. So if we just can carry those protected bike lanes to here, I think we should just build this with the idea that like we're going to have protected bike lanes on the north side of this intersection. We should be removing that slip lane. And yeah, as the previous commenter said, absorbing it into the center of the intersection just doesn't make sense when we need more space on that right side of the northbound Whitney Way for those eventual protected bike lanes. So it feels like we're not seeing the future of how this intersection, this is a temporary patch. And we got to see like what the actual finished product is going to look like in 10, 15 years when we actually like tear this up and build it how it should be built, instead of this like patch where we're leaving this dangerous slip lane in. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thank you very much for coming and sharing your thoughts. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, is that the last speaker, Aiden?
That is everyone, yep.
Okay, comments or questions for Tom? Harold.
Thank you, Chair. So maybe process question first. I mean, is this purely informational? Because I mean, I think the way you described it, it's like, we applied for it, WSDOT is doing the WSDOT thing. I mean, can we change anything?
Well, you'll have to ask Tom that. From a process standpoint, I can say that you can make a motion on this item if you choose to make a motion on the item. Tom is going to have to tell us, because of how this is put together and funded, whether we can make changes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I was going to ask Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but we can when we have something that's here for an update, Harold, you can still make a motion on it. So from a process standpoint, we can do that. Tom's got to tell us about the procedural part of it.
Mm-hmm. So I would just say that we're limited here what we can do based off the funding that we receive from WSDOT and the scope of the project that we applied for. So the city's portion is 10%. The state federal fund is 90%. So anything other than tweaks to this would likely be outside of the project scope. The current estimated project is using, I think, pretty much all the funds. So the way this works for the city is anything beyond the awarded amount is paid for by the city. So, yeah, the slide that I showed with the funding is, that much is from the state, which is actually federal, which is capped, and then anything beyond is city.
Okay, well, let me then maybe just ask very concretely, like, for example, say for the slip lane, which I fully agree with the public comment, it's horrible. Like, say we wanted to have that as a raised crossing, and we couldn't, from what I hear you saying, is that wouldn't be part of the scope. But could we, for example, take like whatever, say, streets money, add that to the contract and get a raised crossing there? Would that be like, oh no, we can't do that because that wasn't part of the original scope?
I think something like that would be, we'd have to look into, because that may result in, storm sewer, stuff like that. But this slip lane was looked into during this process. The slip lane itself is actually, has a good crash record. There have not been many crashes right there with the slip lane. And in this case, it is the truck route to truck route, and it's the main route to Hy-Vee for semi trucks. So there was a look into completely removing it overall. But to do that would likely result in a worse situation for pedestrians. So I think that's why it was limited to this. Raising the crossing only is a good question. I'd have to see what that would mean as far as, storm sewer, things like that, because we're really not doing a lot of storm sewer with this project. And that could expand the scope. Not only you have to put the inlets there, but you got to get the pipes there too. So yeah, I'd have to look into that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think looking into it would be good. And then just bigger picture, some people raised that issue, like, what we're building now may make it more difficult to do improvements later. Do we have a sense of when is Whitney Way due for reconstruction? Anytime?
We don't have it on for any time soon. The thought with the all ages ability on Whitney Way would be to provide a two-way path, likely on the west side. There's grade issues right now. It would likely require right-of-way acquisition to do that. And then for Odana Road, I think we were looking on the south side of Odana Road to get traffic or to get bikes out of the pavement, out of the traffic.
Okay.
But those become pretty involved, large projects that are way beyond this project.
Right. We just don't want to find out that we put our expensive monopole right where we would want that path to be, right?
Yep. And we kept that in mind, especially in that northwest corner. There's some keeping that pole pushed as far back as possible. And then I can just mention the reason for that skew in the crosswalk is there is a major fiber optic handhold junction right where this green area is that could not be moved with this project. It could not be relocated. So we had to skew that crosswalk for that reason.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks, Ann. As a person who in his previous career administered this program for Federal Highway, it was not unusual for agencies to request an HSIP project and receive it and meld it into another project from another funding source, whether it was their own funds or other federal funds or state funds. So yeah, you can do that. The only caution is though, and I had ran into that actually on a City of Madison project where the City of Madison received an HSIP project approval and they had wanted to do some other things beyond the scope of what the HSIP project was. And they could not come to agreement at the intersection. And as a result, I think that the state now has a time limit on how long you have that you can, I don't want to say sit on a project, but that you have to make good progress or make it move forward with what you're going to do. So yeah, you can use other monies and meld the two together, but you have to make good progress on getting the overall, whatever you're going to use the federal funds for, to get that, let's say, off the books in a timely manner. Thanks.
Very helpful. Thanks, Bill. Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I guess following up on Harold's question around process, it wasn't clear to me. Is this informational, or like if we make a motion to recommend changes, are you going to come back with a changed plan?
So this is informational. The time to make changes would have been in 2022 when we applied for and were accepting the funds from WSDOT. At that time, there would have been time to do, like as Bill described, ask for a scope change or combine it with an additional project or do something like that. But since this
is adding things on to the additional scope.
Sorry?
Was I misinterpreting that? Or Bill was describing we can't change the scope of, you know, changing this from a single intersection to a complete rebuild. But if we want to pay for things beyond what was in the scope of the original project, it sounds like that is possible.
Yeah, if the city decided to add in a project, yeah. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You can do more, but you just can't do any more with these funds. These funds are restricted to what WISDOT approved back in 2022.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Bill. And yeah, that, I mean, again, to get to the, I think what Harold was getting at is like, I think we should look at that slip lane specifically. I believe you that the crash rate at the slip lane is good, but I feel like what it does is make it a very, I mean, it's already just overall a very hostile intersection for anyone who's not in a car, but the slip lane especially so makes it really bad. And so I would like to see, you know, what the cost to the city would be and if we could do that.
Cost to the city to remove the slip lane?
Yeah.
Tom?
That would have to be, removing the slip lane would likely have to be a separate project from this project. Yeah, like I said, we did look into that and decided to not go that route. I'm just trying to think of how that, like, if we were set on that, how that would work. It would likely, if the city decided to do that, we would probably have to reduce the scope and take off that section of this project, which I don't think we want to do. I think that would we'd be losing out on some good improvements that we would want to make. So yeah, I guess I'm just trying to, I'm struggling with how that would fit into this project, and it really doesn't. You know, it would expand the scope of this project, which would result in a complete redesign of that corner. Yeah, there's different ways you could do it, I suppose, but yeah, I could ask our design consultant in the state what their thoughts are on that, but yeah, I'm just not sure how we would handle that under this current project.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Tom, you said that you decided not to remove the slip lane. Why did you decide that again?
Because operationally it works well. That's a heavy movement. There has not been a crash issue at the slip lane, and it would result in additional conflicts with a heavy movement of the right turn going across two lanes of going across two crosswalks. And this would have to be, we would have to widen this out to accommodate those trucks. So I don't have the truck turning movement with me, but this lane, the slip lane is pretty much it's designed just to accommodate a large semi-truck to make that turn. So rather than having it there, we'd be pushing it north, which would increase the crosswalks for the west, crossing east-west and crossing north-south, and it would be introducing those conflict points. So, yeah, those were the reasons for not doing that and not including that with this project.
Alder Hokovich, go ahead.
Yeah, I live on Johnson or Gorham and Johnson and Blair, and that's a truck route too, and it's one lane onto, or it's a right turn onto 2-lane street, and they do manage to make it work, and I think we could probably make it work here too.
So here's the crash diagram that was included with the application, and there was nothing at the slip lane. There was this fatality, which was a pedestrian crossing kind of mid-block in this area. They weren't using a crosswalk. Yeah, this was 2016. But I think since then we have not had a crash with the slip lane. So I think the concern would be we were taking what has a good crash record and replacing it with something that may be less safe.
That's unusual for a slip lane, isn't it, Tom?
I wouldn't say it's unusual for pedestrians. There's different, I think it depends on the scenario with the slip lane. Another example is the slip lane from Broome to Gorham University. That's another one with very heavy movements, but a very good crash record. There have been, I don't think, any crashes there because we looked into that, removing that slip lane in favor of a more traditional intersection. And it's hard to justify something that has such a good crash record with pedestrians and then adding the conflict points with the left turn across 2 different crosswalks. I think it works well. In that case, it works well because the pedestrians have good visibility with the driver. I'm not sure about this one, with the trees there, those private trees, but yeah, I'm looking at the crash history back to 2017, and I don't see any crashes with that slip lane.
There are comments or questions. Does somebody wish to make a motion or wish to ask Tom to research something? Harold.
Yeah, I don't think I want to make a motion. I think just my observation is that I think in the future we should be very careful about applying for these highway safety improvement project grants, because it seems like, oh yeah, the city is getting 90% of the project cost paid for, but the price to pay for that is a significant loss of control over design of the project. And I think, the example of Watts and Gammon and now here is that it really seems like highway safety improvement projects that focuses on driver movements, which is important. We don't want to prevent all serious and fatal crashes, but I think it limits our options. We see how long this has gone on. It was approved in 2022 and we're still dealing with it now. So I think I would just advise us, and I think these come to TC at the stage of application, to be mindful of is this a worthwhile trade-off, or is there better mechanisms to fund safety improvements for this? And Tom, I think, I hear what you're saying about the removal of the slip lane. Maybe you can still look or ask or discuss the raised crossing, because that clearly doesn't have any negative impacts, but I understand drainage and all that. Thank you.
Yeah, I would.
Did you want to make? I'm sorry. Did you want to make a motion, or were you going to do that later?
I was not going to make a motion about this.
Okay, I'm sorry. I totally misunderstood you. Thanks, Harold. Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, raising the crosswalk is not a big deal for this type of project because it is a it is a safety improvement. So I don't see any real concern that Wichita would have for doing something like that of modifying the crosswalk to elevate it so it's more pronounced at that slip ramp. I don't see that as I bet you won't get any concern whatsoever from Wichita about that. I'd be very surprised anyway.
So Tom, can we ask you to look at getting that crossing raised?
Yep, I can look into that.
Okay. So you don't need a motion or anything for that. You just can take that away as feedback?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So that's one thing that we can do. Is there anything else that people would like to ask Tom to look into? Anything else? Robbie.
So I'm just kind of curious about are they moving where the signals are going to be placed? Is that what I heard? Like they're going to elevate them and they're going to be in a different position?
So the big thing with this project is providing the signal heads over each lane, so you can actually kind of see where they are existing on this aerial. So there's one signal head here, one over here. So this project gets a signal head over each lane, which is kind of the standard of what we do now for new projects.
Okay, what about Odana? Is there going to be a change to where people are looking at signals when they're on Odana?
Yes, yep, same thing on Odana.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking that is that I have been going through this intersection very frequently because I started working out at the Y. And this is, as others have said, a disastrous intersection for a whole host of reasons. But I have noticed, because the only way to exit the Y, if you want to go north or east, is to get on eastbound Odana. Okay, you cannot exit any other way. So there is a serious compliance issue with making a right turn on red for eastbound motorists. There are two signs, one on the near side of the intersection and one on the far side of the intersection, that say no right turn on red, and they are regularly ignored, which means basically they are not looking for pedestrians when they're making that movement. And so if we're going to be changing where the position of the lights, I want to make sure that the prominence of those signs is also considered, so that maybe the drivers will notice them.
Yeah, yep, we can do that. We will do that for sure with this project.
I mean, there's all kinds of other issues with this intersection, but I realize that it is beyond the scope of this particular project. And others have brought up, lots of concerns, but it's bad. And I will just throw out there that I think, we have in past meetings talked about the Beltline and plans for the Beltline and expansion of the Beltline and that kind of thing. And I am convinced that one of the reasons this intersection is so bad is its proximity to the Beltline, because it seems that at least in the afternoon when I am there, a lot of drivers are headed to the Beltline and nowhere else. So that's just FYI.
I didn't realize I didn't show this slide, but yeah, that's part of the issue here, is that there's basically 3 access points to the Beltline. There's Midvale, Whitney Way, and Gammon Road. And all 3 of them are, congested during the afternoon. So, yeah, it's just a lot of traffic that are using minimal points here that are causing the issues, especially at the ramps and then at the adjacent intersections, which is what this is. So we do struggle with at times traffic backing up to the belt line. So that's something that obviously, especially with WSDOT involved, that's kind of their number one priority is to keep the ramps from backing up. So
right. Yeah. So I'm just gonna make sure that everybody is understanding the point is that expanding the belt line does zero and probably extremely negative effects on our local streets. That was part of my point there, was that you expand the belt line, you dump more traffic onto our local streets, you make it much worse. And the proximity of this intersection to the belt line is a serious problem now. And if the belt line is expanded, I do not see that getting better. So I know that's outside of the scope of this project, but I had to say my piece. Thank you.
Yeah, well, proximity to the Beltline certainly impacts it. That's for sure. Other comments or questions? Okay, thanks, Tom. Right. Next, we have reports from members of other BCCs. Anybody have any reports for us today? No? Okay, we'll be interested, Harold, to hear from you after Regent Street goes back to Board of Public Works. I don't have any announcement tonight. Future agenda items. The June 3rd meeting, we have the Southeast Area Plan and the Southwest Area Plan, which were both referred to TC by the Common Council. We're going to try again for the No Right on Red review and discussion. Crossing guard assignment update and approval. We need to do that because of the timing. Christoph's hoping to get the Department of Transportation annual operations report on the agenda. Potentially Perry Street connection study, annual crash facts report, Vision Zero progress report, and I'll have a brief update from Transportation Commission Appeal Subcommittee because we have an appeal hearing scheduled on May 19th. So not sure if we'll fit all of that in or not, because that's a lot, but we'll see. Anybody have any other future agenda items? In terms of when we have Complete Green Streets on, let's see, we have that out. Where did that go? Out in July is where right now we're looking at it. So it is on the agenda to come back and have discussions about that. Anybody have any other future agenda topics, Bill?
I had mentioned at the last meeting that participated in a webinar on regarding right turn on red, that the National Pedestrian Center or something out west. I can't copy it. I can get it, but I can't download it and send it to the Legistar because it's in a format that it's not like PowerPoint or something like that. So I apologize. I just can't. I figured out how to get it.
Do you access a link to get to it?
Well, I received an email. I asked for the presentation from the and maybe Harlan or somebody might know the organization as the National Pedestrian Center or something like that. Are you familiar with that? Or maybe Robbie is. Rob.
Can you forward the email to Aiden and then he can just forward that email to TC members?
Yeah, but okay, I could try that, but it's not gonna. It won't. You can't download the presentation.
Well, if we're just
link to it,
if we're just sharing I watched it already. I attended it. But if you have access to viewing it and you can forward that access, maybe everybody can just click on that and watch it.
Yeah, that would work. But is that permissible under the legislature?
Absolutely. We're just doing a one-way communication. We're forwarding information.
All right. I'll try that.
Which is information.
I was trying to get it so you could upload it to Legistar, but I can't figure out how to do that.
I don't think we need to do that here, Bill. It's just giving people the option to watch it if they want to watch it.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have anything else for future agenda topics? Okay, then we need a motion to adjourn. Harold.
So moved.
Robbie. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm going to assume unanimous consent vote. And thanks again for all of the great participation tonight, everybody. We'll see you next time.